Hi there, and welcome to a project video where you'll build and deploy a full-stack TikTok clone application with modern design, Google Auth, the ability to upload, publish, share, comment on, and like the videos, filtering by categories, and advanced search functionalities, profile pages, suggested accounts, custom responsive design, and much more. TikTok is the best video social media platform that you can currently find on YouTube. Alongside building this phenomenal application, in this video, you'll learn TypeScript. Yep, you heard that right. In this project, we'll be using one of the most in-demand languages today, TypeScript. And don't worry, no TypeScript knowledge is needed to watch this video. You'll learn it as we go. You'll also learn advanced React best practices, such as folder and file structure, hooks, and refs. On top of that, you'll learn advanced Next.js best practices, such as file-based routing, data fetching that allows server-side rendering, and static generation, which makes your websites incredibly optimized. And you'll learn how to use Next.js as a backend endpoint. In this app, we'll also play with the advanced state management of the entire application. But this time, we won't be using Redux, we won't be using React Context, we'll be using a small library called Zustand. It is a simpler alternative to Redux and definitely a great tool to add to the list of your skills. You'll also learn how to integrate Auth to log in and register users using Google. And most importantly, you'll learn how to manage the entire content of your app using Sanity. Sanity is the unified content platform that will make the making of our entire application possible. Through Sanity, your users will be able to upload new content instantly and on the go. Sanity allows us to focus on developing the application without having to worry about the content, file storage, and databases. They'll cover all the dirty work for us and allow us to build scalable and modern video social media applications incredibly easily. If this video reaches 20,000 likes, I'll create more videos just like this one. So subscribe, like, and let me know what you'd like to see in the next one in the comments. With that said, let's roll the intro and let's get started with building our phenomenal application. Before we dive straight into the development, let me give you a really quick demo of the entire application. This is our homepage. Here we have a sidebar with the top categories and suggested accounts. And in the middle, we can see all the recent videos. We can log in using Google, which allows us to upload new videos. We can add a video file, choose a caption and a topic, and post it. And everyone here will instantly be able to see our new video. And that is only possible because of Sanity. We can now check out the Sanity dashboard, and there you can see our newly created profile as well as the video we just uploaded. Isn't that cool? In this course, you'll learn how to use Sanity from scratch so that you can use it in any of your future projects. Going back to our app, clicking on a video will open its details page. Here, we can like the video as well as leave a comment. And of course, the entire website is completely mobile responsive. As we scroll, you can notice that it feels like a native mobile application. That's it. How do you like it? It's a phenomenal, full-fledged social media application. In the end, we'll also deploy the app so that you can share it with your friends, put it on your portfolio, and get a job. You can also turn it into a real social media network that you or your friends will use. Or even better, start building different social media platforms for your clients. And while we're on the topic of using your development skills to their fullest potential, do you want to travel the world while using your programming skills to earn a high income with no limitations? Freelancing is gaining in popularity as it enables developers to have more freedom and control over their earning potential. So why am I even telling you this? Well, my good friends Chad and Rochelle created the No Matter What project to guide you on your freelance career. As we know, remote opportunities can be highly competitive, but using the remote freedom system Chad and Rochelle will show you how you can remove that competition and get high-paying clients quickly. Plus, they can help you take things a step further with their in-depth coaching program, where they will personally work with you until you're making a six-figure annual income. This is a huge outcome, but I know Chad personally, and I have seen firsthand how he is able to provide support, help, and guidance to those he works with. The no matter what project will help you choose your income, choose your clients, and best of all, choose your location. So if you want to skip the job interviews and start making good money as a freelance developer, click the link in the description and use the code JavaScript to receive a special discount and get ready to freelance your way to freedom. As we always do on JavaScript Mastery, we're going to start from scratch, and I'm going to teach you how to build this application step by step so that you can 100% follow along. We won't be skipping anything. So let's start by creating a new empty folder on our desktop. Let's call it tick tick app. But to follow with React guidelines, just make sure to use lowercase letters and no special signs. Once we have our empty folder, you can open up a Visual Studio Code window. Of course, you can use any other code editor of choice, but Visual Studio Code right now is by far the best one. So let's simply drag and drop the folder inside of our Visual Studio Code. Once we've done that, we can make use of Visual Studio Code's great integrated terminal by going to View and then Terminal. We can clear it, and then we can initialize our Next.js application. If you haven't used Next.js before, no worries, we're going to cover everything in this video. And if you're new to JavaScript development, just make sure to download and install Node, if you haven't already, of course. So go to nodejs.org and then install the recommended for most users version. This process is going to take just about a minute, but you most likely already have Node installed, so we can jump right in. We can initialize our Next.js application by typing npx create-next-app, add latest, and then / to install it in the current repository, and then --ts for TypeScript. And you can press enter. It's going to ask you to install create next app, press Y if that is the case, and in my case, it is immediately installing it. This process usually takes just about a minute, so I'm gonna pause this video and I'll be right back. And there we go. Our Next.js application has been initialized. Now that we have that set up, the first thing we're going to do is fully set up our Sanity backend. That way, we can later focus solely on the development. To start off, you can click the link in the description. Sanity team was kind enough to provide you with double the free included monthly usage. That includes 200,000 API requests, 1 million API CDN requests, and 20 gigabytes of bandwidth. That's going to be more than enough for 99.9% of people, myself included. So let's get started by copying the commands on the website. First, we're going to copy the npm install-g to install the Sanity CLI globally. We can simply clear the terminal and then run npm install-g at sanity/CLI. If you're on Mac or Linux, you might want to type sudo before because we're installing something globally. That is done, and now we can copy the second command right here and paste it. Sanity init --coupon JavaScript Mastery 2022. We are now inside of Sanity's command line interface, and we'll have to answer a few questions so that Sanity sets up the best project structure for us. The first thing we have to do in my case is enter the project name. For you, Sanity might have asked you to log in, so if that is the case, simply log in using Google or use your preferred login method. In this case, I'm going to choose the project name, so let's go with something like sanity-backend. Now, it's asking us whether we want to use the default dataset configuration. Simply press Y and then enter. The dataset is being created as we speak. And we can choose the project output path, but as you can see, it was automatically selected for us, so you can simply press enter. And finally, Sanity offers a lot of predefined templates, so that you can quickly start with your project. You can choose between a movie project, an e-commerce project, a blog project, but in our case, we're going to start with a clean project with no predefined schemas. I'm going to teach you how to do absolutely everything completely from scratch. So let's go ahead and press enter. Right now, Sanity's CLI is creating the default project files. Everything is being set up as we speak. Let's give it a minute and then we'll be right back. While it is installing, a pop-up like this might appear. You'll see too many active changes, only a subset of Git features will be enabled, but don't worry at all, we're going to solve this immediately. And there we go. Our Sanity has been installed successfully. Now we can run Sanity Docs to open up the documentation in the browser, Sanity Manage to open the project settings, Sanity Help to explore the CLI manual, and of course Sanity Start to run our Sanity Studio. Before exploring these commands, let's first fix that Git issue. So Sanity backend install its own node modules, which are all being pushed to GitHub. And that's not what we want to do. So we can create a new .gitignore file inside of the root of our folder. So .gitignore. So we can go inside of our .gitignore file right here in the root of our folder. There, it is targeting the / node modules, but if we remove that /, it's going to target all the node modules that there are, the ones here and the ones inside of the Sanity backend. Now, Git will try to recalculate the changes and then the 10K changes will disappear. While that is happening, let's check out the files and folders that have been automatically generated for us inside of Sanity backend. Most importantly, our schemas folder. Currently, we just have one schema.js file right here. So let's add more schemas right away. We can right-click schemas and create a new file. Let's name it user.js. This is going to be a schema for our users. This right here is a basic JavaScript file. So we can write JavaScript syntax. We can say export default, an object, and we can give it some properties, such as name is user. We can also say title is user with a capitalized U, and we can also say type is equal to document. Finally, the most important part is to add some fields, the fields that this document is going to have. So the way that Sanity did this is really simple. For each field, add a new object. Give it a property name, which is going to be equal to user name in our case. Let's also give it a title, which is going to be username, like this. And the type of that name is going to be a string. And for our user, we need just one more field, which is going to be of name equal to image. That's going to be for the profile image. The title is going to be image as well. And the type is going to be a string because we're going to save a URL from that image. And that's it. We just created our first schema. How easy was that? Now that we have the user, let's copy the entire file structure and create our second schema. We can say new file, and that's going to be comment.js, because inside of our app, users will be able to leave comments on videos. So let's paste the entire structure, change this to comment, and also title to comment with a capital C. This is going to be document, and instead of username, we're going to have posted by, and also posted by right here. So who created that comment? The type is going to be a special type called posted by. And then we can also save the actual comment, which is going to be of a type string. And we are done with our second schema. The third schema is going to be posted by.js. Inside of here, we can export default, and we can give it a name equal to posted by, a title equal to posted by. We can also give it a type, but it's no longer going to be a document. It is going to be a reference type, meaning it's going to connect two different documents. And it's going to be a reference to an array of users, meaning one user can post multiple comments and will keep track of which comments has the user posted. And let's create our last schema. Right-click, new file, post.js. This is going to be for our video. This schema is a bit lengthier, so right below this video, you'll find a GitHub gist with all the helper code for this project. This is going to be the code that doesn't change the logic, but is just a bit repetitive to type, so I'm going to give it to you to save you time and to teach you much more in this video in a shorter amount of time. So you can simply copy it from the GitHub gist link down in the description, and you can paste it right here. You can see this one is a bit lengthier, but everything is the same. We can specify the name, which is post, and then we're adding the fields. We have a field of caption, a field of video, the user ID, as well as the posted by reference. And then we have likes, which is an array of references to users, meaning who liked that post. And finally, we have our comments, which is an array of comments, and a topic, which is going to be our category. Great. Now that we have all of these schemas, we can go back to our schema.js file. Inside of here, we can import all of our schemas by saying import post from /post. Import user from /user. Import comment from /comment. And import posted by from /posted by. And now we have to add all of our schemas right here. So we can simply add them. That's going to be post, user, comment, and posted by. That's it. With this, Sanity is immediately going to read our schemas and it's going to populate them inside of the Sanity Studio. So now that we have everything we need, we can reopen our terminal and we can cd into Sanity backend and we can run Sanity start. This is going to check the configuration files and compile that Sanity Studio with all of our new schemas. Content Studio compiled successfully, and you can hold Control and click this link right here. That's going to open it up, and then you have to log in using your preferred login method. Once you log in, you'll see that 3 of our document schemas have been automatically generated. We can immediately go right here and create a new post. You can see that all of the fields we specified have been generated right here. So we can give it a go and create one post right away. But post has to be a reference to the user. So let's quickly create a user as well. We can go to the user and give it a username, which is going to be JSM for JavaScript Mastery. And we need to pass the image URL here. I copy the image URL for my logo and I can click publish. There we go. The document has been published and we just created our first user. Now we can create our first post. Let's say something like my first video. We can upload. I'm uploading my video right now. While it is being uploaded, we can say our user ID. For now, we're just going to set it to 1. Later on, we're going to automatically populate this. And a cool thing is that we can also immediately specify the posted by, which is a reference to the user, so the JSM user is automatically being fetched. We can add the likes, so let's say that our user JSM liked this post as well. And we can add a comment, so we can say that the user JSM posted a test comment as well. We can do all of this straight from their interface. And we can also specify the topic as coding. There we go. Let's click publish. And as you can see right here, our first video has been generated. We're going to make use of this once we create our application. As you can see, we've just implemented a fully fledged database. Think about that. We've created a schema and added the ability to add users and new content as well. How crazy is that? Imagine if we were working on a MERN application, MongoDB, Express, React, and Node. Imagine how much time would we have to spend to just come up to this point where we're at right now. It would take hours to set everything up, but we've done it in a couple of minutes with Sanity. Sanity team has recently launched their version 3 in developer preview, which means that we'll be able to use even more amazing features soon. With that said, our backend is now fully done. Now we can start creating our frontend application, and then later on, we can connect the two. To do that, I'm going to split our terminal by clicking this right here. We can bring it down a bit. And with the second one, we are just inside of the TickTick app, not inside of the Sanity backend. And we can switch them around a bit. So always have the Content Studio open in one terminal, and then we're going to run our Next.js application in the other. Before we actually run and test our Next.js application, we of course have to install all of the necessary dependencies. And we're going to keep our application incredibly lean, which means that we won't be using a lot of new dependencies. To install all the dependencies that we'll be using throughout our project, you can go to the package.json file. Inside of here, you can see our dependencies. We only have 3 so far. To make sure that the code that's explained in this video works for years to come, which means that if you're watching this video a few years after the release, it should work just as fine as the day it was posted on. So to achieve that, we're going to install exactly the same versions of dependencies. So down in the description, inside of that GitHub gist, you'll be able to find the versions of dependencies, and then you can overwrite your dependencies right here. That's going to make sure that we have exactly the same versions and that you can follow this project to the end without any errors. Once you paste those dependencies in, go to your terminal and type npm install --legacy -peer -deps. Once again, this is going to make sure to install the same versions of dependencies, and you can press enter. Our dependencies are being installed as we speak. We're going to give it a minute and then I'll be right back. There we go. Our dependencies have been installed and we can now check out our pages. So we only have an index.ts page and an _app tsx page. To check if everything works, we can open up our terminal and run npm run dev. This just compiled our application on localhost 3000. So you can simply control-click this link. And as you can see, our application compiled successfully. That means that we can finally get back to code and we can start setting up our file and folder structure and actually dive into the development. I know that this was a fairly long setup process, but it is really important that now we have everything set up correctly and we'll be able to simply flow through the build of the entire application. Focus on the setup and then everything is going to be easy later on. With that said, let's start writing code. We can first go inside of the pages folder, and as you can notice inside of it, we have the API folder. That's where all of our API routes will go later on. We also have 2 really important files, which are _app.tsx and index.tsx. For now, what we can do is we can clear most of the things from our index right here. So let's go ahead and remove it, and let's only keep the outer div and say something like tick. There we go. That's good. And we don't need these right here. We are also not using the styles right here, so we can remove those styles. Remove them from here as well. And then inside of styles, we're going to remove the home.module.css, but we're going to keep the globals.css, although we're going to make some modifications to it. So what we can do is, again, down below in the description, you can copy and then paste right here this really simple globals.css file. Once you've copied and pasted it, you'll be able to notice that we have unknown add rule add tailwind. This means that we have to install and set up Tailwind to be able to proceed with building our application. And to do that, we can go to the Install Tailwind CSS with Next.js page. You can simply Google and find it, or you can follow along with me and install it together. So we already have created our project, so we can skip the step 1, and now we have to install Tailwind CSS. So what we can do is run our first command right here. Let's open up the terminal, stop it from running for one final time, and paste the command. This is going to install Tailwind, PostCSS, and Auto Prefixer as dev dependencies. There we go. And we can also copy and paste the second command, npx tailwind css init-p. This just created the tailwind.config.js and postcss.config.js as well. We can proceed with the third step, and that is to configure our template paths. To do that, we can go to our tailwind.config.js, and once again, down below in the description, inside of that GitHub gist with all the other code, you'll be able to find the tailwind.config.js. Inside of here, we simply specified that our styles can be used in pages and components, and we also added some additional colors and background images. That's about it. And the next step is to add Tailwind directives to our CSS. We've already done that, and we can run npm run dev and test our application. So let's copy this hello world. Let's run our application by running npm run dev. And let's go back to our index.tsx and change this div with our h1 that now includes text-3xl, font bold, and underline to see if these Tailwind styles will be applied. And back inside of our localhost 3000, you can see that hello world indeed is large, it is underlined, and it is bolded. That means that we've set up Tailwind successfully. Now to start creating the structure of our files and folders, we can first collapse everything and go inside of the pages and underscore app.tsx. This is where we actually create that template. In Next.js, this is the place where we create that structure. What we can do is we have the function myapp right here. We can convert that into an ES6 arrow function. And you can notice that this is looking a bit differently from a regular function. And that's because we are inside of a TSX file, which stands for TypeScript. So in here, we have to specify what kind of props are we passing to each and every component. In this case, these props are of a type app props predefined by next app. In the future, we'll be defining our own types. So for now, that's all that you have to know. Inside of here, we're going to import the use state and use effect hooks. And that's going to be coming from React. Next.js applications can be ran on backend and on frontend. So there's one step we have to do to make sure that our app works well. And that is first create a new state. So let's say use state, and let's use state snippet. Let's call it is SSR, server-side rendering. And we're going to set it to true at the start. So at the start, we're going to think that this page is being server-side render, but we have to define when it is not. So we can create a use effect, and that use effect is going to run only at the start. So the dependency array is going to be empty. If we come to this use effect, that means that the code right here is being executed inside of React, which is client-side. So we can set the isSSR to false. And finally, we can say if isSSR, then we're going to return null. Because if we are server-side rendering, then we don't want to show our components. And this was just a little check that we do, and that's going to prevent errors in the future. So if you're wondering why we did this, well, it's to have a smoother workflow in the future. Now that we have created that, we can create the actual structure of our application. So let's expand our return statement, and let's wrap our component with a div. There we go. So a component is going to be a specific page we're rendering, but we want to share some pieces with multiple pages, such as the navbar. So what we can do is we can create a navbar, but later on, we're going to convert this into a real component. Below that navbar, we're going to have a div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to flex, gap-6, and on medium devices, gap-20. Right here, we're making use of Tailwind. Tailwind allows us to add utility classes, and that way we don't have to write specific styles. We can immediately add styles inside of our JSX. And with this, we're just creating the initial structure. Soon enough, we're going to open up our app and see how does it look like. Inside of this div, we're going to have an additional div with a class name equal to h dash, and then in square brackets, 92vh. So our mid part is going to take 92% of the screen. We're going to set the overflow to be set to hidden. And on extra large devices, on hover, we can set the overflow to auto. This is going to be for our sidebar. So inside of here, we can render our sidebar. For now, it is just a text, but soon enough, that's going to be a sidebar component. And below that div, we're going to have one more div, and this is going to be for our main content. So we can move our component right inside of it. There we go. And what we can do there is add a class name equal to margin top 4, flex, flex dash column, gap dash 10, overflow dash auto, h dash, and then that's going to be in square brackets, 88vh. It's going to have a videos class name and a flex1 class name. And that's all that we have to do to start with the setup. We can finally dive into creating our components by creating a new components folder inside of the root of our application. And of course, we're going to call it components. Inside of those components, we can first create our navbar .tsx, not TS or JS. It's TSX because we're using TypeScript and JSX. And we can run RAFCE to create a boilerplate structure. If the RAFCE command didn't work for you, you can head to extensions and then search for ES7 Plus React Native snippets. Install that and then run RAFCE again, and it's gonna work. And we can also repeat the process for our sidebar. So sidebar.tsx and run RAFCE. Great. Now we can go back inside of our app, and inside of there, we can import navbar from /components / navbar. And we can repeat the process for our sidebar as well. There we go. Now, instead of simply calling the sidebar and the navbar, we can actually call them as components like so. Now, instead of simply having texts of navbar and sidebar, we can call them as real components. There we go. Sidebar and navbar. We can save this and we can finally check it out in the browser. As you can see, it's still not looking pretty. We have just the navbar text and the sidebar text and the hello world right here a bit to the right. So we cannot actually see the structure we created so far, but we can see that the navbar is at the top, taking the top part, sidebar is on the left side, and then the main content is in the middle, a bit to the right. Of course, once we start adding styles, it's going to start looking so much better. But it's important that we have created the basic structure so far. Now that our underscore app is done, we can start creating our navbar component. Since we're finally diving into writing some real JSX, we can put our browser side by side by the editor so we can see the changes that we make live. And there we go. Our code is on the left side and our browser is on the right side. We can start by importing a few necessary dependencies, such as import image from next/image. We can also import the link component coming from next/link. We'll also use the router here, so we can import the use router inside of curly braces, and that's coming from next/router. Inside of our navbar, we're going to also do the Google login and Google logout button. So right here, we can say import Google login as well as Google logout. And that's coming from a library we're using called React-Google-login. We'll also use a few icons. So we can say import inside of curly braces, AI outline logout, which is coming from React-icons/AI. We're going to also import the BI search icon coming from React-icons/BI, and also import IOMD add, which is coming from React-icons/IO. There we go. We have all the external imports that we need. So we can start with writing the JSX. Right inside of our div, we're going to have a link right here. There we go. And inside of that link, we're going to have a div. And inside of that div, we're going to have an image, a self-closing image tag. That image is a optimized Next.js image component. And as every image, it needs to have a few properties. The first one can be a class name equal to cursor-pointer, so that we know that we can click it. And we need to provide a source. And the source for our image is going to be the local path to our logo. So to get that logo and all the other constants, you can go down to the description and find a zipped utils folder. The link to download the zipped folder is going to be in that GitHub gist. It's going to be called utils. So simply download it, unzip it, and then paste it in the root of your folder right here. And it's going to show up right here. You'll be able to notice that we have many different files. So we have the client files, which we're going to use to set up our Sanity client. You can ignore that for now. We also have the constants. These are going to be simply some categories that we're going to use. And we also have the index.ts. We're going to remove the code from this one as we're going to write it together from scratch. And finally, we have the queries TS, which are going to be used to make the calls to get our videos. And finally, we have the tick logo, the image we needed in the first place. So just make sure to have that utils folder right here. Now that we have it, we can go back to our navbar and we can import it right here. We can of course do that by saying import logo coming from /utils/tick-logo.png. There we go. And now we can provide the source of logo to our image. Alongside the source, we can also provide the alt tag, which is going to be tick, and we can also provide the layout equal to responsive, which is going to make the image responsive. Now you can notice that we have an error, and that's because we have to add an href to our link. So we can say href is just a / because this is going to point to home. And immediately we can see a great tick logo for our application. Now we can start creating the layout. So let's give some class names to our outer div. That's going to be class name is equal to w-full. This is going to make it take the full width of the screen. And we can also unzoom it in my browser right here. Let's also give it a flex property, a justify dash between property, items dash center, border dash b dash 2, and we can save it. So this is going to give it a border bottom. You can barely see it at the top. And let's also give it a border dash gray dash 200. Padding y is going to be 2, so padding on top and bottom. And padding x, padding on left and right, is going to be set to 4. So now we can barely see our navigation bar right here at the top. But our logo is gone, so we have to make sure that we get it back. To do that, let's provide some class names to our inner div right here. We can say class name is equal to w dash, and then inside of square brackets, 100 pixels. So now the image is going to take the width of the outer div. On medium devices, we can set the width to something like 130 pixels. And then on medium devices, we can set the height to 30 pixels. So something like this, h-30 pixels. And also, usually, h is going to be set to 38 pixels to make it a bit bigger. There we go. So now we have our tick logo. Looking at the logo, it seems like it's missing some space at the bottom, so removing those heights altogether is going to fix that problem because it's automatically responsive. There we go. Now our navigation bar is going to contain a complex search component right here with search functionality, and it's going to contain the button to add the videos. Also, it's going to contain the button to log into our platform. But so far, we don't need those things. Because why do we need the search for if we're not yet showing the videos? Why do we need to log in if we cannot post them? It's going to make sense to implement those features later on once we implement the sidebar and the actual main part of our screen. So let's say that we're good to go with the navbar so far. We can close the navbar and we can move to our sidebar. Our sidebar is going to contain the categories as well as the link to the homepage. To start implementing our sidebar, we can of course first import a few things from different packages we're using. So let's import the next page, which is coming from next. That's going to be the type of our component. We can import the use router coming from next/router. We can then import the link component coming from next/link. We are again on the sidebar going to use that Google login component. So we can say import Google login. from react-google-login. We're going to also import a few icons such as AI fill home and AI outline menu. And that's coming from react-icons/AI. We can also import the IM cancel circle, and that's going to be coming from react-icons/IM. There we go. Now we have all of the imports we need for implementing our sidebar, so let's get started. Inside of our sidebar, we have a div, and inside of the div, we're going to have one internal div. This div is going to have a class name equal to block. On extra large devices, it's going to be hidden because this is the sidebar only for mobile devices. And then later on, we're going to have a sidebar for desktop devices as well. We can provide the margin 2 and margin left 4. Margin top is going to be 3. And text is going to be large throughout our entire sidebar. Now, this div is going to contain the button to close or open the sidebar. So let's create a state. We can first import the use state coming from React right here. And then we can say use state snippet. Let's call this show sidebar and set show sidebar. At the start, it's going to be set to true because we do want to show it. Now we can make use of that state right here by saying if show sidebar, then we need to show the icon to close it. So we can say IM cancel circle. Otherwise, we can use the AI outline menu icon. There we go. So now we can see it right here. Of course, to toggle it on and off, we can give it a non-click. And we have a callback function right here. Once we click on this, we want to set show sidebar to be equal to, well, not show sidebar. And if we save this and try clicking it, you can see that it actually works. But this is not a great practice in React. When we change the state using the previous version of that same state, sometimes mistakes can happen. So what we have to do is create a callback function that contains the previous state like this, and then say prev state is not equal to prev state. This is going to have the same effect, but this is the proper way to do it in React. There we go. So now is the time that we actually implement our sidebar. So right below our div, we can create a new dynamic block of code. And if show sidebar is true, so show sidebar end, then we can implement the sidebar code. So right here, we can create a div that's going to wrap it. This div is going to have quite a few class names. So that's going to be on extra large devices. Width is going to be set to 400. Usually, width is going to be set to 20. It's going to have a flex property as well as flex-call for column. We're going to justify the items at the start, and margin bottom is going to be set to 10. It's also going to have a border right 2, and the color is going to be border-gray-100. On extra large devices, border is going to be set to 0. And we can also give it a padding of 3. There we go. So now we can see just a bit of a border, but as soon as we add more content, this is going to make more sense. Inside of that div, we're going to have one more div, and that div is going to hold our home link. So let's give it a class name equal to on extra large devices, border-b-2, and color is border-gray-200. And on extra large devices, padding bottom is going to be set to 4. Now inside of there, we can implement our link component. So that's going to be a link pointing to href, which is going to be just /, meaning home. Inside of there, we can create a new div. And inside of that div, we're going to have a p tag that's going to have a class name equal to text-2xl. And there, we can render the AI fill home icon like this. We can space it out in multiple rows and save it. There we go. You can see the home icon. And we can also add a span element inside of which we can say for you. So this is going to be like a for you page. Let's style it a bit. Let's give it a class name equal to text-xl. It's going to be hidden usually, but it's going to be visible on extra large devices. So as you can see, it is not visible now because we want to take as little space as possible to show the videos. But if we go to extra large, then we can see it right here. This div also needs some styles. And for now, what we can do is say class name is equal to, and let's make it dynamic this time. Let's say normal link. So we'll have two types of links, normal links and active link when it is clicked. So what we can do is we can now extract that class because we'll be reusing it and create it right here at the top. So let's say const normal link is equal to, and that's going to be a string. It's going to have properties of flex, items-center, gap-3. On hover, it's going to be bg-primary, and it's going to have padding-3. You can see it's already being positioned just a bit differently, and on hover, it has a background. We can also give it a justify-center to center it. That's looking better already. And we can give it on extra large devices, justify-start. We can give it a cursor-pointer so that people know that they can click it, and a font of semi-bold. Also, we can change the color a bit, text dash, and then this is going to be F51997. There we go. So now it follows the color of our logo as well. And we can also make it rounded. Now it's going to seem like a button. There we go. So this is looking great already. And this is going to be our normal link. We're going to also have the active link later on. Now, below our home link, still inside of the show sidebar, we have to figure out if the user is currently logged in or not. And based on that, we have to say, go to your profile or log in. So we have to create a new state. And for now, we're just going to hard code it right here. So that's going to be const user profile. And for now, we're going to say that we are not logged in. So it's going to be set to false. Now, inside of here, we can say if no user profile, then we want to render something. And that something is going to be a button to log in. There we go. So it's going to look like this. And it looks like we have an error right here. So let's figure out if we're properly closing everything. This user profile block should have been one layer above inside of the div that says show sidebar. Great. So now right here, we can create a div. And then inside of that div, we can create a p tag that's going to say log in to like and comment on videos. There we go. That's perfect. I mean, it's looking not that good so far, but once we add some styles, it's going to be much better. Let's add a class name, text-gray-400. And let's also give this div a class name of something like px-2 for some padding, py-4 to divide it a bit. It's going to be hidden usually, and then it's going to be available only on extra large devices. So again, on mobile, we want to keep it as simple as possible, but if we expand, it's going to look great on larger devices. Now, below that, we want to create another div. So below the p tag right here, that div is going to have a class name equal to padding right-4, so pr-4. Inside of there, we want to render the Google login component like this, a self-closing component. We have to make sure that we imported it at the top, and we did. And we, of course, have to provide some props to it. The first prop is the client ID. And this is the key that we have to generate inside of our Google so that this Google login works. For now, I'm going to leave it as an empty string. Later on, we're going to fill it in. The Google login button also has to have the onSuccess function handler, to which we can pass an empty callback function right now. Later on, we're going to add the logic in. And we also have to have the onFailure, which we're going to also leave as an empty callback function for now. Another necessary thing is the cookie policy. And we're going to say cookie policy is equal to, and that's simply going to be a string of single host origin. If you're wondering where am I getting these things from, you can simply visit the npm React Google login page. Inside of here, you have a demo link, as well as how to properly call this function. And as you can see, I'm not imagining anything. I'm simply using what they've specified right here. Great. And this is the button without any styling, but we want to style ours. So we need to provide a special render function. Right here below the client ID, let's add a render. It's going to accept a callback function with an instant return. And there, we're going to get render props, as you can see right here inside of the documentation. So how is our button going to look like? Well, first of all, it's going to be a button, as any other button. It's going to have an on click, as buttons usually do. And the on click is going to be render props.onClick. So we're simply going to do what the button is supposed to do. And if it's disabled, we can say render props.disabled. Now the button itself is going to say log in. So if we go back, we should be able to see it, but it's not there yet. So let's adding the class names to actually make it visible. Our first class name is going to be bg-white, text-lg. And if we do that, it's still not visible. Let's add a text dash, and now we can change the color of the text, and that's going to be the same color we used before, F51997. There we go. If we expand this a bit, now we can see that login button right here. So we won't be able to see the changes live because our code is going over it, but let's just expand it and then we're going to switch as we need. So we're implementing that login button right now. Let's add a few class names such as border-1pixel and also border dash in square brackets. Again, that same color of F51997. Let's save it. There we go, looking just a bit better. Let's also give it a font dash semi-bold. Let's give it a padding X of 6 and padding Y of 3. Let's make it rounded a bit with rounded dash MD. Let's say outline is none, W is full, and margin top is 3. And that is going to be our button. We can also give it a hover property. So on hover, we want to change the text not to this color, but we want to change it to white. So let's say white right here. And also, then we want to change the background. So on hover, we want to change the BG dash and make it this color that we again specified. So let's paste it right here. There we go. Now, if we save that, you can see that if we hover, this is looking great. And we can also give it a cursor of pointer. There we go. Now we have a beautiful button right here. Once again, we're going to wait a bit with the Google login, and we're going to implement the rest of the sidebar first. So I can collapse this so that we can see our entire Visual Studio Code. Below the user profile, so below the closing braces right here, we're going to have 3 new components. The first component is going to be called Discover, a self-closing Discover component. This is going to show the new categories that we can discover. Below that, we're going to have the Suggested Accounts section. And below that, we're going to have our sidebar footer. These are the 3 components that we haven't yet created. So let's do that right away. Inside of the components, we can create a new Discover component .tsx and run refce. We can repeat the process for Suggested Accounts .tsx. Again, run refce. And finally, we can create our footer.tsx and again, run refce. Now back inside of our sidebar component, we can import these. There's a quick way to do it by double-clicking the word and then pressing Control Space on Windows and just clicking here. It's immediately going to import the component. There we go. If that didn't work for you, you can manually import it at the top by saying import Discover from Discover, import Suggested Accounts from /suggested accounts, and import footer from footer. And that's going to give us our 3 components. So the next logical step would be to start working on the Discover component. and that's going to immediately improve the look of our sidebar. So let's do that next. To start implementing our Discover component, we can first import the link from next link, because this is where we'll be doing the routing. And we can also import the use router from next/router. We're going to also do a local import of topics coming from /utils/constants. There we go. And inside of here, if you control click to go into the topics, you can see that this is just imports of some icons. And then we have an array of all of the different topics that we can go through, such as development, comedy, gaming, food, and so on. In this case, I'm going to rename development to coding because I think we called it somewhere else the same way. So that's it. And then we also have some links for footers, just some static data. With that said, we can now make use of these topics inside of the JSX of our Discover component. So we already have a div. Let's give it some class names, such as on extra large devices, border-b-2, and on extra large devices, border-gray-200 for the color, and padding bottom is 6. So again, we cannot yet see this. We'll only be able to see it on extra large devices. Inside of there, we can create a p tag, and that's going to say popular topics. There we go. Let's put this in a new line and let's style it a bit. We can give it a class name equal to text-gray-500, font-semi-bold, m-3 for margin 3, and margin top 4. We can make it hidden usually, and then only on extra large devices, we're going to show it so we can bring it back to block. So now it's hidden, but on extra large devices, we can see popular topics. Okay, so below, let's actually loop over our topics. We can create a div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to flex, gap-3, and flex-wrap. There, we can open a new dynamic block of code, topics.map. We have one item, and then for each item, we want to show a link. So let's create a link component. This link is going to point somewhere. More specifically, it's going to point to, let's make it dynamic. So a template string / topic is equal to item.name. So it's going to point to coding, gaming, makeup, or different topics like that. And we can also give it a key equal to item.name. Inside of that link, we actually want to show it. So let's create a div, and that div is going to have a span element inside of it. So we can say span right here, and we can render the item.icon. Now, if we save that, you can see the icons right here. And right below that, we can add another span element and say item.name. So we can see the icon, and we can also see the title of that topic. Now what we can do is apply some styling. So let's start with our icon. Let's give it a class name equal to font-bold, text-2XL, and on extra large devices, text-MD. There we go. Now if we save that, I don't think they got bigger. Let's see, text-2XL. There we go. I was missing an L there. And let's also style the span with the item name, font-medium, text-MD. Usually it's going to be hidden, but on extra large devices, it's going to be visible. So block, and we can also say capitalize. There we go. So now you can see that these are bolded and they're visible, but if I go to a mobile navbar, we can no longer see the topic names, just the icons, to make more space for our main content. Let's go back to the full view, and let's implement more styling. Once we hover over it, or once we actually click it, we want to know that we're on that topic right now. Even though I'm clicking on these, it seems like nothing is changing, but actually it is. If you look at the URL, the topic right there is changing. Food, dance, beauty, and so on. So that is great, but we have to see that visually somehow. So to do that, we can create some topic styles, and we can do that right here at the top. Let's say const active topic style. And that's going to be equal to, and below that, we're going to have const topic style, which is going to be equal to something else. Let's say XL, so on extra large devices, border -2. On hover, BG-primary. On extra large devices, border -gray -300. Padding X is going to be 3 and padding Y is going to be 2. It's going to be rounded, and on extra large devices, it's going to be rounded -full. We're going to make it a flex container and give it the items -center. We can also give it a gap -2, justify -center to center it, cursor, -pointer, and finally text -black. There we go. And now we can make use of this topic style. So where are we going to use it? Well, let's use it inside of this div wrapping the spans right here. So we can give it a class name and we can say topic style. There we go. If we save that, this is already looking much better. Now we have these pill-like structures which seem like buttons, but once we click them, nothing is changing. So let's style it a bit differently. So to create our active topic styles, we can copy most of the class names from the topic styles. So let's simply paste it right here. And now we can change some things. First of all, the XL border color is going to be different. So we can say border F51997. And also text is not going to be black. It's going to be the same color, FF1997. There we go. If we save that, you can notice that once we click on it, nothing happens. And that's because we haven't made use of the active topic style. So how can we know that? How can we know if a specific item is clicked? Well, for that, we can use the data that's inside of our URL. And to get that data, we can use the next router. So we can say const router is equal to use router. And then we can extract the topic from that router. By using object destructuring, we can say const inside of curly braces topic is equal to router.query. And now right below, inside of our div right here, we can see if topic is equal to item.name, then we want to render the active topic style. Else we want to render just the topic style. So if we're currently on the item that the URL topic is equal to, then we want to show that style. Now you can see if we click coding, coding is going to be selected. Same thing for comedy, gaming, food, dance, beauty, animals, and sports. So this is already looking great. Now, if you collapse it to mobile size, you're going to notice that now we have this nice, beautiful look. So even on mobile devices, this is looking great. We can still see one video right here, and we can click to collapse it. So this is great. Now, the next part inside of our sidebar are the suggested accounts, but we're going to skip that because we cannot yet fetch accounts since nobody created their account yet. Before that, we'll focus on a really simple footer though. So to create this footer, we'll need to import just a few local things. These are going to be footer list 1, footer list 2, and footer list 3. That's coming from /utils/constants. There we go. And now we can create our footer component. We're going to have one outer div that's going to have a class name equal to margin top is going to be set to 6. It's going to be hidden usually, and it's going to be visible only on extra large devices. Inside of there, we want to render a div. And that div is going to have a class name equal to flex-wrap, gap-2, and margin top 5. Inside of there, we want to map over our footer list 1. So right here, we can map over it and just represent one p tag for each footer list item. Looks like we're missing a curly brace. We're good. And there, we're going to simply showcase the item. Now, to be able to see that footer, we have to expand it. There we go. We can see the about, newsroom, store, contact, careers. And then we can give it a key equal to item. And we can also give it a class name equal to text-gray text-400, text-sm for small, hover, underline, and also cursor-pointer. So now if we hover over them, they're going to seem like links. Now we have 3 footer lists. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract this div into a new functional component. Right here above our footer, we can say const list is equal to, and we can instantly return just this div that we created a moment ago. There we go. Let's indent it properly. Looking good to me. And now we can recall that list and pass the footer list as a parameter. So let's call the list component as a self-closing tag. And we're going to pass in the items, which is going to be the footer list 1. Now we can accept that prop, items, and instead of rendering the footer list, we can render the items. Now, since we're using TypeScript, we'll have to specify of which type is this items element. And we can do that by saying colon. We can create a new object of types, and we can say items, and now we can say string, and then array, which means that it is an array of strings. And that's great, because now if we pass a number right here, like 1, it's immediately going to complain, hey, you cannot pass 1 to the items, because items is an array of strings. And that is great, because it's saving us from troubles later on. Now, the reason why we did this is because now we can simply duplicate this code and render the footer list 2 and footer list 3. So now if we save this, you can see that we have different links for each one of our footer lists. We can also add one last p tag right here. And that p tag is going to say 2022 tick tick. There we go. We can call it JSM tick tick. Feel free to call it however you'd like. And let's also add a class name. That's going to be equal to text-gray-400, text-small, mt-5. Looking great, but there's just a bit too much margin on this first link. It's great for dividing the other lists, but the first one shouldn't have it. So what we can do is we can provide additional prop called empty is false for the first one, and then empty is true for all other ones. If it is true, you don't have to say true, you just provide the prop and it is automatically going to be true. A cool thing about TypeScript is that it is immediately complaining, saying, hey, you cannot pass this because the property empty does not exist on this list item. So what we have to do is we have to accept it first here, and then we have to say empty is a boolean. So now we're good. And now what we can do is make this class name a dynamic template string. There we go. And we can open a new block and say if empty, then show mt5 as a string right here. There we go. I'm going to move this around a bit so you can see better. If empty, add margin top. There we go. So now we don't have that extra margin here and everything is looking great. Once again, our sidebar is now fully complete. We're going to focus on the suggested accounts really soon, but the next part that we're going to do right now is the main part. The navbar and the sidebar are almost fully done. Of course, we still have to implement the Google login, but I would say that now is the time for the main star of the show, and that is to render and fetch different videos. So great job on making it this far. I know that we've done a lot of setup, we've done a lot of styling, we've done a lot of things that aren't really what this video is about, and that is fetching and creating videos to create a video social media network. So let's do that right away. So to start focusing on what really matters, we can close these files and we can go right inside of pages, index.tsx. This is where we have that hello world. So let's focus on that right away. And now onto the main part of our show, showcasing the videos. This is how the finished page is going to look like. As you can see later on, we're going to have the search, the profile icon, all the popular topics and suggested accounts. But most importantly, we can scroll through all of the videos, as you can see right there. So now let's create this main part where we can actually fetch real videos from Sanity and display them here. To start with that, we can go back to our own localhost 3000 and we can import Axios, because this is the file where we're going to be making real API calls. So import Axios from Axios. What we can also do is finally fetch the data. And the way in which you fetch data in Next.js is using get server side props. So you have to write export const get server side props. And that is going to be an asynchronous function that looks like this. But now, before we start using get server side props, let's actually explore what it is. Right inside of the Next.js's documentation, we can see that get server side props is a function that we can export right below our real component, and it is going to server side render the page. That means that Next.js will pre-render this page on each request using the data returned by get server side props. But the question is, when do we want to use it? And you should use get server side props only if you need to render a page whose data must be fetched at request time. This could be due to the nature of the request or the data or properties, such as authorization headers and so on. In our case, we'll be fetching videos, so we need to fetch new videos each time that we load the page. And to do that, we can start making API requests right in here. So what we can do is say const response is equal to await axios.get. So we are making some kind of a get call to a specific URL. And now let's form that URL. What we will be doing right here is making a get request to our own backend. That's right. Inside of Next.js, we can create our own fully fledged backend server. So we can go inside of the API folder, and inside of there, we can create a new folder. We're going to call it post. Inside of the post, we're going to have a new index.ts file. And for now, we can copy what we have in the hello.ts. We can delete that file, and then we can paste that inside of the index.ts that's inside of the post route. Perfect. So this is how it looks like. They immediately give you some boilerplate code, such as next API request and next API response, and we're simply returning something as if we are in a real backend. So what are we going to do right here is we're going to make a call to Sanity right from our API request. But first, let's call it from inside of our get server side props. To do that, we need to form our URL. So let's create a new template string, and there we're going to do http :// localhost 3000 /API /post. And that's it. If you remember correctly, Next.js uses a so-called file-based routing system. So if we are inside of the API, inside of the post folder, and then index, that's going to be API post. That's it. Now, to make sure that we are properly making this request, I'm going to create a console log, and we're going to console log the response that we're getting back. And now inside of the index.ts, we can actually return something. We can return something like response success. There we go. And now if we go to our get server side props, there's one thing that we have to do, and that is add a return statement, and we have to return props, which for now we're going to leave as an empty object. And also what we can do is instead of simply console logging response, let's do response.data.name, because that's what we are sending right here. So now if we open up this terminal right here, that's where the console logs from the get server side props will be rendered. We can reload our page and check it out. Response success. That is working great, which means that we're actually calling our own server right here from inside of our get server side props. But now let's actually do something inside of that server. Let's try to fetch all videos and then bring them back here. And we can do that if we go to our server. Let's kind of space this out properly. We're going to put it in one line right here. There we go. And we can remove this data object right there. So we have a handler, we have two parameters, request and response. And if you're wondering what this is, rec and then colon next API request, this means that we're using TypeScript, which means that we specify that the request is going to be of a type next API request. And then in here, if you control click it, you can see everything that that request can contain, which is amazing because now if you try to do something like rec.test, it's going to tell you test does not exist on type next API request. And that's phenomenal because you can instantly know what can we use from that request. Great. With that said, let's make some API calls here. The way in which Next.js backend works is that each route can be any of the HTTP types, and that's going to be post, get, and so on. So what we can say is if rec.method is triple equal to get, which in our case it is, right? Because we're doing a get request right here, then we can get the query to fetch all videos. So const query is equal to all posts query, and we're going to call that as a function. So this is something that I have already prepared for you. If you go inside of our file tree, inside of utils, and then inside of queries, you're going to notice that I prepared a few queries for you. We have the all posts queries, which goes through all the posts and then returns all the videos. We have the post detail query, and so on. This here is using a language similar to GraphQL, but you can learn more about that on Sanity's documentation. There we go. The language is called Grok. It is a Sanity query language. It is a graph relational object querying language. And again, it is similar to GraphQL. You can easily make queries to fetch some data from the database. You can go through this, read more about it, but we can go through one query just so I can show you how simple it is. Inside of here, we're saying fetch all documents that are of a type is equal to post. And in our case, those are videos. And we can order them in created at, descending. So the newest ones are going to show at the top. Then we specify what do we want to get from them. I want to fetch the ID, the caption, the video, which is going to contain the asset, including the ID and the URL. We need to fetch the user and the posted by, as well as the likes and all the comments. And then we return that query. Now we can control click to automatically import this from utils. Or if that didn't work, you can just write import all posts query from // utils and then / queries. There we go. So now that's going to give us our query. And now that we have it, we can actually fetch data from Sanity. So we can say const data is equal to await. And now we come to the point in which we need to have the client set up. And I'm referring to the Sanity client. So that's going to be our next step, setting up our Sanity client so that we can actually make API requests. And we're going to do that inside of utils and then inside of client. As you can see right here, I have already given you a template of how that can be done. We are importing Sanity client from @sanity/client. We're saying export const client is equal to Sanity client. We call it as a function, and we provide an object as the first and only parameter. But now is the time that we actually have to check our real project ID. This is the project ID I used before, but now we're going to create a new Sanity project from scratch. As a matter of fact, we've already done that at the start when we were creating our Sanity config. So if you still have your other terminal opened, that's great. In this case, I'm going to split it. I'm going to cd into Sanity backend, and I'm going to run Sanity start. That's going to spin up an instance of our Sanity on localhost 3333. There we go. I can control click it to go to it, and we're there. From here, you want to click right here and click Manage Project. That's going to bring you to your project dashboard. And if you take a look right here, we can see our project ID. So let's simply copy it and override this one right here. We can leave the data set to production. We can leave the API version to this date right here. UCDN is going to be set to false because we're going to be fetching new videos each time we reload the page, which means that we need them instantly. And finally, we need to specify our sanity token. And the way in which we can do that is you can go to API, you can go to tokens right here, and we can create a new API token. That token is going to have the editor, meaning read and write access, and we can name it something like development. And we can click save. This is going to generate a new token, and it says right here, copy the token below because this is your only chance to do so. So make sure to copy it. And now we're going to add it to our environment variables. So let's go ahead and create a new env file, but be really careful. You need to create that env file in the root of your folder, not inside of pages, utils, or components. You have to create it right inside of the root. So right here, we can create a new file called .env.development because we're going to have a new env for production as well. So right here, we can create that new variable. And that environment variable is going to be called next underscore public underscore sanity underscore token. And we're going to set it equal to the token we just copied. Perfect. And if you're wondering why are we using environmental variables, that's because we want to keep our tokens safe. You don't simply want to paste a string right here because then everybody will be able to take a look at it. In this case, we are using environment variables. Perfect. Now, one important thing to mention is that before environment variables can take effect, you need to reload your terminal. So what we can do is you can Control-C, Y, and then run npm run dev again so that it actually gets populated. There we go. And that's going to give us access to our sanity client. While our program is running, there's one more thing we have to do right here, and that is add our localhost under course origins. So right above tokens, you have to add a new course origin, and that's going to be http://localhost 3000. And we can click allow credentials and save. This is a crucial step. If you don't do this, you won't be able to fetch the data from your application. Now we can go to our index.ts and we can make use of our client. If you haven't already, you can import it from //utils client. And what we'll do with it is simply call a .fetch method, and we're going to pass in our query that we created above. This is going to make sure to fetch the data. You can also notice that we have an await here, which means that we have to make our function right here asynchronous. There we go. And now that we have the data, we can do res.status 200, and we can do .json, and we can pass that data back to our front-end side. Now we can go back to our get server-side props. We are no longer expecting the data.name, but rather response.data are our videos. So what we can do is we can immediately destructure the data from the response, and we're going to return it via props. So right here, what we can do is say videos is equal to data. And the way in which get server-side props works in Next.js is whatever you pass inside of this props object will automatically be populated inside of real props on this page right here. So now you know that we can expect videos. There we go. And we want to make sure to follow all of the best TypeScript practices. So whenever you're accepting some props inside of your Next.js page, we have to create a so-called interface. Interface is like an object. It's going to have its own name, iProps, which stands for interface props, and it's going to be an object like this. That object is going to accept only one thing, and that is going to be our videos, right? But now we have to define of which type are our videos going to contain. And of course, that depends on the data that Next.js will send back to us. So for now, let's comment this out. And let's try to console log the videos. There we go. I'm going to save that. Go back to our localhost 3000. Open up the inspect element and the console. And let's try to reload the page. If we've done everything correctly, and it seems like we did, you should be able to see an array with one object inside of it. This object right here was the first video, the one we created using the Sanity's disk, not the one we created using our application, because we cannot yet upload the videos. As you can see, the comments are there, the likes are there as well, the posted by is there, and the video assets are there as well. Now, based on what we can see right here, we can create a type for a video. So let's do exactly that. Not to clutter our current view, we can add our types in a new file. So let's create a new file in the root of our folder, and that file is going to be called types.d for development, and that's going to be ts. Inside of there, we can specify all of our types. We can do that by saying export, interface, video, and again, interface is nothing more than an object explaining how our object is going to look like. So what are we going to have? Well, we have a caption right here, right? So we can say caption is going to be a string. We have a video property that you can see right here, and that video property has a property called asset that has the URL and an ID. So what we can do is we can open up this video. It's going to contain an asset, and that asset is going to have an underscore ID is equal to string, as well as URL is equal to a string. And you can see that clearly right here. Now, to save us some time from writing all of these types, you'll be able to find the entire types.d.ts right down in the description under a GitHub gist. So you can find it there and then simply paste it right here. As you can see, we added just a few more properties to this video as well as to our user type. Great. Again, make sure to copy it and we are ready to continue with the video. Now, inside of our index.ts, we can recreate that interface. And what we can do is we can import the video type. So let's say something like import in curly braces video coming from /types. And we can say our home component is going to accept a video, but not just one video, it's going to be an array of videos. There we go. And now the only thing we have to do is say videos is going to be of a type iProps. That means that we know exactly what we're expecting from inside of our component. And for now, we can remove this next page right here. There we go. It is as simple as that. And the best thing about this is that we now know exactly what our video contains. If you control click this video right here, you can see all of the properties that every single video will have. So you won't have to guess, what are we working with? You'll know exactly what we can access. And that's a really cool thing about TypeScript. So now that we have our videos, let's try to loop over them. Let's create a new div right here. And that div is going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-call, gap-10, videos, as well as age-full to take the full height. Inside of there, we can say if videos.length. So if videos exist, then we want to open up a ternary. And what we can say is we want to say videos.map, mapping over the videos. We get each individual video, which is of a type video. Again, making full use of TypeScript because now we know exactly what we can use. And then for each video, we want to return a new component, which is going to be called video card. That component doesn't yet exist, but we're going to create it really soon. And to that video card, we're going to pass a post property, which is going to be equal to a video. And we also have to pass a key, which is going to be equal to video._ID. There we go. And if we don't have any videos, what we can do then is create the else of the ternary. And we can return something like a new component called no results. There we go. And to it, we can pass a text equal to something like no videos. There we go. Let's make this capitalized and we are good. Now, of course, we're going to get many errors as these two components don't yet exist, but let's create them right away. Inside of our components folder, we can create a new video card.tsx component. That's going to be an RAFCE again. And we can create a new no results.tsx, and we can run RAFCE again. Now we can go back to our index and we can import them. You can do that by double clicking and then pressing Control Space. For that Control Space, I think you have to have an extension installed, and I think it's Path IntelliSense. So if this hasn't been working for you so far, try installing this one and then see if it works. If not, you can simply import all of these manually. So that's going to be /components, no results, /components, video card. There we go. But now you can see something interesting, and that means that we're exploring the full powers of TypeScript. It immediately complains right here. There's a squiggly red line. If you hover over it, it says type post video and key string is not assignable to type intrinsic attributes. Property post does not exist on type intrinsic attributes. So what this is saying is that video card component is not accepting any props, as you can see. But to fix that, we can do what I've showed you for the last component. We can create a new interface called iProps. And what do we want to accept? Well, that's going to be a post, which is going to be of a type video. And of course, we have to import that from types. So import video from /types. And now there are two different ways in which you can specify a type. We can destructure it right here and say post is equal to iProps like this. The alternative and the more proper way to do this is to import the next page type from Next.js. So we can say import next page, and we can import that from next. Then we can say our video card is going to be of a type next page, and then we can open up the lower than and greater than sign, and then inside of there, we can pass the iProps that our component is going to accept. And now we know exactly what our props are. So if I try doing something like console.log post.something, immediately we get a warning. Property something does not exist on type video. This is phenomenal. It can save you so much time in the future and so many errors. Of course, it does take some time to set up, but once you get used to TypeScript, you're gonna love it. So in this case, what our video does contain? A caption, right? So if we do something like post.caption, you can see it works. Great. So now we know that our video card is accepting the post, and inside of the index, it's not complaining anymore. Now let's repeat the process for our no results. So our no results is going to be a bit simpler. It's going to have an interface where we have iProps, and it's going to have a text, which is going to be equal to string. There we go. And since this one is a bit simpler, what we can do is simply destructure the text and use the other alternative way I showed you. Just specify it right here. It's completely up to you which way you want to use. You can do it right here for simpler ones, or you can do it like this for more complicated types. Great. So now our application is complaining no more. We can go back and we have a video card. We're passing the video to it. And of course, now is the time that we implement the looks and the functionality of how that video is going to look like. That is this component right here. We need to specify who created it with an image and the username. We also have to add the caption and then the fully functioning video player with the volume, mute, and unmute button. Great. So let's do that right away by moving into our video card, and let's implement that component. To start creating our video card, we can first import a few things. So we already have the next page and React. We will get a few hooks from React though. So that's going to be use state, use effect, and use ref to manage the video play and pause and mute and unmute buttons. We're going to also import the image from next/image and import link from next/link. We're going to also get a few icons, so we can get import hi volume up and also hi volume off. And that's coming from react-icons/hi. We can also get import bs fill play fill and bs fill pause fill. And that's coming from react-icons/bs. We can also import another that's going to be go verified from react-icons/go. And finally, we can import the bs play icon, and we can also import that right here above. There we go. So bs play. Perfect. So now we have everything we need. We have the video type, we have the props, and we can start creating our video card component. We can start straight with the JSX. To make things interesting from the start, let's give this div a class name equal to flex, flex-col, border-b-2, border-gray-200, and padding bottom 6. Let's save that. You can instantly see just one line for the border bottom. Inside of there, we're going to have an empty div that is going to serve as a wrapper. And then inside of there, one more time, we're going to have another div. Now, we can collapse our Visual Studio Code a bit so we can see more of the browser. And let's put the browser side by side so that we can see in real time what's happening. This div is going to have a class name equal to flex, gap-3, padding-2, cursor-pointer, font-semi-bold, and rounded. And inside of there, we're going to have another div that we're going to use to kind of play with positioning and the size. So right here, we can give it a class name equal to, on medium devices, width is 16, and then on medium devices, height is 16. Usually, width is 10 and height is 10. This is for the image right here. So what we can do is we can instantly render a link. That link is going to point to the profile. Right now, we don't yet have the page to render the profile, but for now, we can simply put an empty href. And one key thing that I recently learned is that you cannot put an image as a child component of a link. So we're going to create a new empty React fragment, and then we're going to render the image right inside. That image is going to have a width equal to 62, as well as the height equal to 62, and it's going to have a class name equal to rounded-full. And the most important thing, of course, is to render the source, and that's going to be equal to video.postedBy.image. There we go. We also need to add an alt tag equal to profile photo, and also layout is equal to responsive. Now, TypeScript is saving the day once again. You can see if we reload, video is not defined. So what we can do is call this a post, right? Not a video. So right here, we can change that to post, and we're good to go. But it says invalid src prop. In Next.js, what you have to do is you have to configure your image's hostname. So you can just copy what it says right here, YT3, copy that, and then we can go to our Next.js config. So let's find it. There we go. And then right here, we have to add a new property called images. Under images, we need to add domains. And then right here, you can simply paste what you copied. There we go. So this is going to allow Next.js to render images from this specific host name. That's fine. And now we can rerun our application. So open the terminal, Control-C, and then npm run dev again, and then reload the page. And there we go, JavaScript Mastery logo. In your case, this should be your profile image right here. So that is looking great. We can get back to our video card. And below this div right here, we can add another div. Inside of this div, we're going to also have a link. So we can copy this link component right here, close it, and then inside of there, we're going to have another div. This div is going to be for the username and the actual name. So right here, let's immediately render the username inside of a p tag. So right here, we can render a p tag, and let's do post.postedBy.username. There we go. If you went ahead and typed something like name, Again, TypeScript is going to save you and say, hey, name does not exist on posted by. So username is the right way to go. Perfect. You can see JSM right here. And what we can also do is render the Go Verified icon. So inside of our application, everyone is going to be verified. So we can say Go Verified. We can give it a class name equal to text-blue-400 and also text-md. So there we go. Now we are verified. That Go Verified is supposed to go inside of a p tag. So I'm going to bring it right here. And we can also add a space between the Go Verified and our post. So I'm going to indent this, and then right here, we can add one empty space. And below this p tag, we can add another one. And this one is also going to render the posted by .username. Of course, that's going to be post.posted by .username. There we go. Let's fix this, save it, and now we can see everything. Of course, this is just JSM. Usually it's going to be your full name here. And let's immediately change that to the full name. So I'm going to go to localhost 3333, user, and change our JSM to something like JavaScript mastery. There we go. And publish. Now, inside of our application, if I reload the page, you can see the change happens instantly. That's sanity for you. Perfect. So now let's add some class names. The first div inside of a link is going to have a class name of flex. There we go. Items-center and gap-2. We're then going to give a class name to this p tag. It's going to have a class name of flex, gap-2, items-center. On medium devices, text-md, font-bold, and text-primary. Okay, so that made it a bit bolded. And finally, let's style this p tag below. It's going to have a class name equal to capitalize, font-medium, text-xs, text-gray-500 for the color. And on small devices, it's going to be hidden, but on medium and larger, it's going to be visible. There we go. So this is already looking so much better. Now we can go below this div right here. Let's find it. There we go. And we can also go below two more divs. So we only have one at the end. And now we're going to start creating the second part, which is the actual video. So to do that, let's add another div. There we go. That div is going to have a class name equal to, on large devices, margin left is 20, flex, gap-4, and relative. And then inside of there, we're going to have a div that's going to serve as our actual video soon enough. That div is going to only have one class name, which is going to be rounded-3xl. And inside of that div, we're going to have a link. Later on, that link is going to lead to the video details page. For now, let's simply make it lead to /. And inside of there, let's render our video. So video is going to look like this, and we can give it a few prompts equal to post.video.asset.url. Let's save it. And there we go. Our huge video is right here. This one doesn't have a nice thumbnail though, so it's just showing us blue, but for you, it's going to be something different. Let's give it a loop. So it's going to instantly loop every time that it finishes. Let's also give it a class name to style it a bit. So class name is going to be on large devices. Width is going to be something like 600 pixels. We are on medium now, so we cannot really see that. H is going to be 300 pixels. On medium devices, the height is going to be something like 400 pixels. And then on large devices, height is going to be something like 530 pixels. I found these values to work the best. Usually, the width can be something like 200. There we go. If we save that, you can see that now this is a nice kind of upright video for the TikTok format. And we can also give it rounded-2xl to just round it a bit. Cursor-pointer, which means that we can click on it, and bg-gray-100. There we go. So now we have our video right here. If it were a horizontal video, then it would take the entire space right here. Perfect. The video part is now done. This div, though, that's wrapping the video, is going to have two additional properties. on mouse enter, which for now we're going to leave as an empty callback function like this, and we're going to add the functionality later on, and also on mouse leave. When we enter with the mouse, we want to show the play and mute button. And then once we leave, we want to hide them. And that's how websites usually do it. Now we can add those buttons. It's going to be play and pause, as well as mute and unmute. So what we can do is below this link right here, we can add a property called isHover. So if we're currently hovering on the video, then we want to show a div that's going to include those buttons. Of course, this is a state that we are yet to create. So right at the top, we can create a new useState property. That's going to be useState, and we called it isHover. So isHover at the start is going to be set to false. Now that we have that state, we can make use of the onMouse enter and onMouse leave. So right here, the only thing we have to do there is say onMouse enter, set isHover to true, and then onMouse leave, set isHover to false. There we go. And that's it. Now we'll be able to show and hide this block of code right here. So what is our div going to have? Well, it's going to have, as we mentioned, 4 different buttons. One, if we are already playing, then we have to show pause. If we're not, then we have to show play. We have to show mute or unmute based on the current sound status. So for that, we're going to have different states. So let's add those states right away. Below the isHover, we can add another useState, and that's going to be playing. Set playing, and at the start, it's going to be set to false. We can also have another useState, which is going to be isVideo muted, set isVideo muted, and at the start, that's going to be set to false. Perfect. So now we can go down, and now we can implement those buttons. What we can do is open a new dynamic block of code and say playing, question mark. If it is playing, then we want to show a button. And that button is going to have a BS fill, pause, fill, like this. So we want to pause it if it is playing. If it is not playing, then we want to show a button again, but now that button is going to be BS fill, play fill, not pause fill. So there we go. You can instantly see if I hover over it, it shows as play for now. Of course, it doesn't do anything and it's showing below the video. Now let's make those icons a bit bigger by giving them a class name equal to text-black, text-2XL, and on large devices, that's going to be text-4XL. There we go. That's more like it. And now we can duplicate this entire part below, but instead of playing, we're going to say is video muted. If it is muted, then we're going to show the HI volume off. And then otherwise, we're going to show the HI volume up. There we go. So now we can see both of these icons right here. Of course, the buttons are not yet doing anything. So for buttons to do something, we actually have to change the state of the video. We have to make it play or pause on click. And to do that, we have to add something known as a ref to our video component. In React, you can create refs by using the useRef hook, which we imported at the top. So right here, we can say useRef, or rather const videoRef is equal to useRef. And at the start, it's going to be set to null. Now we can use that video ref and attach it to our video. So if we scroll down a bit, there we go. We're going to say ref is equal to video ref. There we go. Now we can manipulate with that video element. It is the same as using document.getElement by ID in plain HTML. In React, it is made easy for you using the video ref. Now what we can do is create a new function, const on video press. That's going to be equal to a function. And there we can check if the video is playing. Then we want to call the video ref .current.pause to pause it. And also set the setPlaying property to false. We can also add an else So if it is not already playing, then we want to call the video ref.current.play and set playing to true. You're going to notice that our TypeScript is going to complain right now, and it's going to say that the object is possibly null, because at the start, we do set it to null. And in here again, TypeScript is saving us from ourselves. It's saying, hey, sometimes you might have that video ref, but in many other times, especially at the start, this is going to be null. So possibly you won't be able to call this and you're going to get an error in your application. That's why we love TypeScript. To fix that, we can add question marks right there. That's going to make sure to not crash our application if it doesn't work. But again, then it's going to say that the property pause does not exist on a type never, which is a bit confusing. But to fix that, we can add a type to our video ref. What we can do if we scroll down is notice that this is a video, and this is a react.video HTML attributes HTML video element. That's what we're working with. So we can copy that, and we can say that our ref is going to be of a type, and this is how you do it. Again, the lower than and greater than signs, and you pass the HTML video element right here. So we are essentially saying to TypeScript and React, hey, this video ref is going to be attached to the HTML video element, which then has the pause and play properties. So now it knows that there's no foul play. We definitely do have the pause and play. Perfect. Now the question is, where are we gonna call the onVideoPress? Think about that. Well, on the play and pause button. So right here, we have the play and pause. So we can add an on click on this button and say onVideoPress. So what do we want to do? Simply call the onVideoPress, and it looks like I'm missing an S there. There we go, onVideoPress. And we also want to call that onVideoPress on the second button. There we go. So now, if we press this button, the video actually plays, and that's looking great. We have useful Chrome extensions, fake filler, and so on. Many more posts like this coming on our Instagram page, LinkedIn, and all other social media, so make sure to follow us if you haven't already. With that said, our pause and play now works, which is great. Now let's also make our mute and unmute work. To do that, we can simply add the on click right here, and this is the volume off. So what we can do is call a callback function right here and call our set is video muted. So set is video muted, and we're gonna set that to false. Now for the second button, we can copy that on click, paste it here, and set is video muted to true. There we go. So now this should switch as well, and we should actually be picking up the sound from the video. That is great. If I'm not mistaken, the video I uploaded here doesn't have sound, so we're going to test the sound later on with some other videos. But that's looking great so far. We do have a bit of empty space right here, but if we upload horizontal videos, then they are going to take much more horizontal space. So we definitely should be good to go. With that said, our video card component is almost done. We just have to fix the positioning of these buttons. So to do that, we can go under our div, where we say is hover, and we can add some class names. So these are going to be just a bit lengthier as we have to position them properly. So the class name is going to be absolute. We're going to also do bottom-6. You can see right now they're right here. Let's also do a cursor dash pointer and left-8. There we go. Now they're there. And now we can position them differently on different devices. So on medium, I'm going to position them left 14. On large, we're going to position them as left 0. We can also make it a flex property, giving them a gap of 10. And also on large devices, justify dash between. Let's see how does it look like. Okay, that's looking much, much better. We can also change the width of that container to 100 pixels, usually, on medium devices to something like 50 pixels. And finally, let's also give it a padding -3. And this is looking great to me. Perfect. I would say that our video card component is looking good so far. Our next goal, of course, is to implement the upload page. And to be able to upload different videos, we of course have to authenticate ourselves as a logged in user. So what we can do next is close all of these files and folders. We can go to our navigation bar, because inside of our navigation bar, we created that login component, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, we just have it imported here, but we didn't yet create it. So our next step is gonna be to create that Google login button and to implement the Google login functionality. So you can take a bit of a break and come back really soon, because I'm gonna teach you how to do Google authentication and then how to upload videos to our own custom video-based social media platform. While creating this video, a funny thing happened. Initially, we imported the React Google login npm package, right? And it worked fine while I was developing this video. Of course, it takes me a few weeks, up to a month, to develop one single video. And while I was developing it, it has been working perfectly. But as I've said, a funny thing happened. Just a few days ago, Google said, hey, you're not gonna do this. They mentioned that they are discontinuing their Google Sign-In JavaScript platform library for web, and it will be unavailable for download after the March 31st of 2023. But they also mentioned that the newly created client IDs are now blocked from using the older platform. Essentially, Google just blocked all of the npm packages using their Google Sign-In for websites, and they're now urging you to use their new Google Identity Services for web. And I'm really glad that this happened exactly at the time while I was recording this video, because now I'm going to teach you how we can make a transition and use that new Google Identity Services that enables seamless sign-ins and sign-up flows. Perfect. So what we're gonna do is, instead of using React Google Login, which is now deprecated, we're gonna use a new package that is up to date with Google Identity Services. And after doing a bit of digging, add react-oauth/Google, which was published a month ago, is the package we need right now. Google Auth to using the new Google Identity Services. So that is perfect. So let's install it. We can open up our terminal. We can close our second terminal to have more space, stop the app from running. And then right here, we can install npm install add react-oauth/Google. And there is just one additional package, which we also have to install, and that is JWT decode. And the reason for that is that Google Identity Services now only allows you to log in, but it doesn't allow you to get the profile image or the username. Now we have to do that by decoding the JSON web token that we get back from the login. So now we can install those new packages. As soon as I fix this typo right here, OAuth, there we go. And as you know, on JavaScript Mastery, I always teach you the latest and greatest. So from now on, you can say that you know how to integrate Google Identity Services in your React applications. Perfect. This has been installed, and we can now run npm run dev to get back where we were. Inside of here, we no longer need Google Login and Google Logout from the React Google Login, but rather we can read the docs and figure out that we need to import the Google OAuth provider. So what we can do is remove this, go inside of our app.tsx right here, and there we're going to import Google OAuth provider inside of curly braces from react-oauth/Google. And we need to wrap our entire application with it. So right here, we can wrap our div, or just change our div to be the Google OAuth provider. And now we need to pass our client ID, which is coming from Google. So that's going to be our next step. Signing into Google, get our credentials so that we can enable Google Login inside of our application. To create Google credentials, let's go to console.cloud.google.com. So once again, it is console.cloud.google.com The link is also going to be down in the description. Let's visit that website. If you haven't logged in yet, you can do so now. And let's go ahead and create a new project. I already had a tick demo, but now we're going to create a new project. And let's call it tick. You can simply click create right here. And as you can see, the project is being created as we speak. We can select that project. We can open up the sidebar, go to APIs and services, and go to credentials. First, we have to configure our OAuth consent screen. So let's click configure. Let's choose external because we want to make this app available to everyone. Click create. We can enter tick as the app name. I'm going to choose my email right here. You can leave the rest empty. And I'm going to add my email address right here as javascriptmastery00@gmail.com. There we go. And you can click save and continue. We can leave scopes empty for now, and we can again click save and continue. One more time, and back to dashboard. Now that we have the OAuth consent screen, you can head to credentials. Inside of here, you can click create credentials and choose OAuth client ID. Application type is going to be a web application. Name is going to be tick. And then a really important step is to add the authorized JavaScript origins and authorized redirect URIs. So let's add URI, http:// localhost, like this, and a new one, localhost 3000. So add these two origins. And then also add them as the authorized redirect URIs, both localhost and localhost 3000. Once you've done that, you can click create. This is going to generate your client ID, so just click copy OAuth client right here. Then we can go back inside of our app, and instead of simply pasting it here, we can add it to our environment variables. So let's go to our env develop, and we can say next _public _Google _API _token is going to be equal to, and then paste your client ID right here. Now we can go back to our _app tsx, and there we can simply call the process.env.next _public _Google _API _token. As you can see, TypeScript is going to complain a bit and say, hey, this can also be undefined, which is not all right. We're accepting a string right here. So we can wrap this into a template string so that we always know that we're going to have something. There we go. I think we should be good now. And that is it. And whenever you change environment variables, you also need to reload your server. So let's Control-C and then npm run dev one more time. Perfect. Now, if we go back to our application, we have just done the first step, and that is wrapped our application with the Google OAuth provider. Now we can go back to our navbar, and we can make use of that new Google login button. To do that, we can import. That's going to be Google login, as well as Google logout. But keep in mind, this is starting with a lowercase g because it's going to be a function. And that's coming from @react-oauth/Google, that new library which is updated for the Google's new authentication system. What we can do now is go below our link right here. We're going to create one more div that's going to serve as a search form. So for now, I'm going to simply say search right here. Below that div, we're going to have one more div. And inside of that div, we need to check if we currently have a user logged in. So we can say if user, then we need to return an image of the user and his name. So for now, I'm going to simply return a div that's going to say logged in. But if a user doesn't exist, then we want to return that actual login button. So right here, we can render the Google login as a self-closing component. Perfect. What we can do now is, of course, create a dummy state of that user, as we're not really fetching the user yet. So I'm going to say const user is equal to false, because we want to see that login button. And since we're using TypeScript, Google Login automatically complains and says that you need to add a few things. Let's read it more properly. You need to add the on success as well as on error. So let's add those two right away. On success is going to be equal to a callback function where we get the response. And for now, let's simply console log the response. That's all that we need for now, just to see what is happening. We can also add the on error. And again, we're simply going to create a callback function and say console log error. There we go. But we can just do it as a string. That's perfect. So now let's reload the page. And using that new library, we can immediately see a beautiful sign in with Google button right here. So let's go ahead and click it. And there we go. A new window is going to appear, and you can choose an account to continue to tick. I'm going to choose JavaScript Mastery. We can choose whether we want to confirm. And I think that is it. Of course, nothing happened because we're just console logging it. But if we go to inspect and then console, we do get back an object that contains our client ID and our credentials. That's all that we need. That means that the user has been logged in successfully. Of course, we're just console logging it now. We're not storing the user in the state, so we cannot yet see what's happening. But we're making progress. Our next step is going to be to create a state, a global state that's going to remain, that's going to be persistent, where we can actually store the currently logged in user. And to do that, we'll have to head to our utility functions. So inside of utils and then inside of index.ts, this is where we're going to fetch our Google response. We can remove this const right here. And the only thing we're going to need is going to be Axios, and then later on, an additional dependency to parse the data. But for now, we're good with this. So we have a fetch Google response, which we can rename to create or get user. So inside of here, we're going to create a user if there isn't a user with that email yet, or we're going to fetch that user if it already exists. And we get a response, and we also are going to pass the add user functionality. So the first thing we can do is console log the response that we're getting. And keep in mind that we're going to call this function from inside of our navbar. So right here, instead of console logging the response, we're going to call our create or get user. And we're going to pass that response as the first parameter. So let's double click, control space, and then let's import it. There we go. We're going to import it from create or get user coming from /utils. There we go. And at the start, there's only going to be one param, so we can remove the other. There we go. I'm going to expand this a bit so we can see it more clearly. We have a function where we're console logging the response. We've already seen that response. It contains a few things, and one of those things is response.credential. So let's console log it. I'm going to inspect, go to the console, and now I'm going to click sign in with Google. I'm going to choose my email. And there we go. This is that huge credential I was telling you about. And that is actually a JWT, JSON Web Token. So what we can do is import a JWT underscore decode coming from JWT-decode. That's a dependency we have installed. And what we can do is say const decoded is equal to response.credential, like this. And then we can see what the decoded data is equal to. Of course, before we run this, we're going to actually make a call to the JWT decode and pass the response.credential as the first and only parameter. There we go. Now we can sign in with Google. There we go. And now we get an object back. So take a look. I'm going to divide this a bit. we have a few different properties, but we definitely do have access to the email and to the name right here. So that's the full name, that's the email, and we also have a picture. Let's copy that picture, and we can search for it by removing the double quoted strings. And there we go. We have a huge logo right there. So that means that we have everything we need, and we have it under name, picture, and email. That's going to be all that we're going to use. So now we can specify a type for the decoded value. It's going to be a type that's going to have an object with a name of string, a picture that's going to be a string, and finally a sub, which is going to be a string. That's something I forgot to mention. We'll be using this sub value right here as the unique identifier. That's going to be unique for every user. And now we can destructure those values. So const name, picture, and sub is coming from, or rather is equal to, decoded. And now we can form a user object based off of that. So we can say const user is equal to, every single sanity document has to have an underscore ID, which is going to be equal to sub, that ID. It has to have an underscore type, which is going to be a string of user. We have to have a user name, which is going to be set to name. And finally, we also need an image, which is going to be set to picture. There we go. And with that, we have created our user object. But we are not using it. As you can see, user is declared, but its value is never read. So what we can do is make an API call. And for that, we're going to use Axios. So we can say await Axios.post. It's going to be a post request this time because we want to pass data with the request. And that's going to be to http:// localhost 3000/API/auth. And as a second parameter, we're going to pass our user. That's perfect. So now we're properly passing that user data, and we can create that API route by going to Pages, API, and then inside of the API, not inside of the post, inside of the API, we can create a new auth.ts file. That file is going to follow the same structure as our index.ts inside of a post. So we can copy it and we can paste it inside of here. So we are importing the next API request and the response, and we're creating a method. But instead of a get method, we are accepting a post method. And also, we won't be needing a query, and we can change the path to our client, because now it's going to be just .. because we're not inside of a folder. There we go. So we are left with this. This is the Next.js API handler, and then we have a post method. So what do we have to do here? Well, first of all, we're getting our document. So const document, or we can say user, is equal to rec.body. So we're sending the data to the request, and we are getting it right here in rec.body. And then we want to call our sanity client. Client.create if not exists. And we pass the user. So create a user if a user doesn't already exist. And we can chain a .then method to it and say .then simply res.status of 200 and also .json. So we're going to pass back the string that's going to say login success. That's all that we need. Perfect. So this is going to create a new user inside of Sanity's database. And we should be able to test that out right away. So let's go back to our application. Let's expand this right here. Unzoom a bit. There we go. And I'm going to click sign in with Google. I'm going to choose my email. There we go. It seems okay. And now let's open up localhost 3000. I closed it, so I'm going to just cd into Sanity backend, and I'm going to run npm start. We can now open the localhost 3333. There we go. It's connecting. And once we're in, we can see one fake JavaScript mastery, which was the previous one, but also the real one. I think the real one is this one because we fetched the profile image from the Google user. So that means that we have successfully made a post request and created a new user inside of Sanity. But what you can notice is that we still don't seem to be logged in. As you can see, we did save it, we did create it, but we're not showing it here. And that's because we have to save that currently logged in user inside of our local storage or any kind of persistent storage for React. We can use React Context API. We can use Redux, but in this case, I wanted to keep it really simple and also teach you one new technology, and that's going to be ZooStand. ZooStand is a lightweight Redux alternative. As you can see, you can increase and change the state, and that's all that they have here. They have this icon where you can move and you can change the perspective. Quite a cool landing page, if I may say so myself. So you're going to learn how to use ZooStand, and you're going to notice how simple it is. So to start, we can go back to utils. So before creating the user in Sanity, we can actually add the user right here, and we're going to pass in the user. For now, I'm going to leave this commented out because we don't yet have that function to save the user in the state. So to implement our entire store, we can create a new folder inside of the root of our folder. And right here, it's going to be called store. Usually, when you have one single source of state in your application, it is called a store. And inside of there, we can create the auth store.ts. This is going to be the only file in which we're going to set up ZooStand. So we can import create from ZooStand. We can import persist. So this is going to be so that it actually remains active even after the page reload from ZooStand/middleware. And we're going to import Axios from Axios. Now we can say const auth store. That's going to be a function that accepts a set function, and we're going to set it as any for now. And it's going to not have a block like this. It's going to have an instant return, which means that we have to wrap it with a pair of parentheses. There we go. So we're going to have our user profile, and that user profile is at the start going to be set to null. We can also then create a method called add user, which is going to be set to a function where we have a user. And again, we're going to just set it to any right now. If you don't want to mess with TypeScript in some cases, you can simply say any, which means that the user will be of an any type. And the only thing we have to do here is call that set that we have as the first param, pass an object, and say user profile is going to be set to user that is coming to this function. And of course, we're going to pass it later on. That's going to be all that we need for now, believe it or not. Finally, we have to say const use auth store, and that's going to be equal to create. We call create as a function, and then inside of it, we can go in a new line. We call persist. We pass that auth store, and we pass an object where the name is going to be equal to auth. That is it. I know there was a lot of code here that maybe you're not used to, but believe me, this is it. This is all that there is, and you can simply read this in the docs and see how it has to get set up. The last thing we have to do is say export default use auth store. What this allows us to do is call the use auth store as a hook from inside of any component in our code. So let's call it inside of our navbar. Right here, we can import use auth store from /store/auth store. There we go. And what we can also do is say const user profile, as that is how we called it, and also add user. Remember, we created those two properties right here, user profile and add user. And that is going to be equal to to the use auth store. What we can do right now is pass that add user to our create or get user function as a second parameter. So you're passing that add user. And now if we go back to create or get store, we are also accepting a second parameter right here, add user, which we can set to any for now. And now we can call that add user function, which is going to add our user to the persistent state, which means that when we reload the page, the user is still going to be there. To properly test that out, here's what we can do. Let's go back to our navbar, and then right here, let's try to render the user's name if we're logged in. So this is no longer going to be a fake variable. Now it's going to be a real user profile. And if a user exists, we can try to render the user profile dot, I think it is user name. There we go. So right now we have an issue. TypeScript is complaining because it's not sure if the username exists on the user profile. So that's something that we'll have to get fixed later. And also, we no longer have to have this user variable. Now let's go back to our code. And you can see this new Google login even automatically allows you to log in with just one click, which is really cool. Let's click sign in. I'm going to choose my JavaScript Mastery email. And there we go, JavaScript Mastery, which means that we're successfully logged in. We can no longer see the login button, but the key question right now is, if we reload the page, is this going to remain right here? I just reloaded the page and it is there, which means that we're still logged in, which means that ZooStand is working, which means that we have successfully created a Sanity account and everything is perfect. The next step is going to be to add this profile right here and the upload and the logout button if we are logged in. And then finally, we'll be able to jump into the upload functionality. Are you excited? Hopefully you are. Let's get started. Right here, where we're checking for the user profile, we can add many more things besides just the username. So let's clear this div out, expand it, and let's add a class name right here. Let's make it flex, gap-5, and on medium devices, gap-10. Inside of there, we're going to have a link to upload the post. So right here, link, and then inside of that link is going to be a button. But of course, we have to add an href to that link. So for now, let's just do /upload. Perfect. Now we can add an icon to this button. That's going to be IOMD add. We can change the class name to something like text-xl, like this. Let's save it. There we go. We have a plus icon on top right. And we can also add a space in between. And then below that, we can add a span element. This span is going to say upload. There we go. We can also style it a bit. So we can give it a class name equal to hidden, usually. And then on medium devices and larger, we can re-show it. Perfect. Now let's also give some class names to this button. For example, we can give it a border to make it a button, border-2. Padding X is going to be 2. On medium devices, padding X is going to be set to 4. Text is going to be set to MD. And font is going to be set to semi-bold. We can also set it as a flex and items-center and give it a gap-2. Now, if we expand this a bit, you can see a nice upload button. Perfect. Now, below that link, we want to check if the user image exists. So user.image. And if that is the case, we can then render a link with the image. I think we have already done that somewhere. So for now, let's simply create a link right here. And then let's search if we have already used the user image before. So let's search for all instances of the image tag. And that is in the video card. Yep, that's going to be it. A link with the image inside of it. So we can copy that and then paste it right here inside of this user.image. There we go. We have a link, and then inside of the link, we have an image. Let's save that. Looks like user.image doesn't exist. So that's because we called it a user profile right here. There we go. And also we no longer have post that posted by that image. Now it is going to be user profile.image. And this is the first time we're actually using the image that was auto-generated by Google. So what we have to do is we have to add this right here to our next config as well. Remember how we added that previous one? We also have to repeat the process for this one. So we can head to next.config, and right as the second element inside of this array, we can add LH3 and then Google user content. Perfect. And I think we have to reload the page. So let's Control C, yes, and then npm run dev one more time to rerun it. As soon as we do that, we should be able to see our profile image. And there we go, but we still cannot seem to see it. Let's go back to the navbar. We are saying if user profile.image, then render a link, and that link is going to point to the profile, but we can do that later. Then we have the image that's going to have a class name of rounded full and also cursor dash pointer because it is clickable. And we want to render the user profile dot image. Let's just remove this layout right here and also change these to something like 40 pixels. There we go. So now we can see that JS Mastery logo, which is perfect. Now we can add a button to log the user out. So just below our user profile here, we can add another button. This button is going to be of a type is equal to button. We can add something inside of it, and that something is going to be the icon. So that's going to be AI outline logout, and we can change its color to be equal to red, and we can change its font size like this to be equal to 21. There we go. You can see it. And in my opinion, this is looking good already. We don't even have to style this button further. Let's zoom out a bit. Yep, this is looking great. We can just give it some kind of padding and move it a bit away from the margin. So let's do just that. Let's give it a class name equal to px2. There we go. And if we look at the finished product, we can see that it is right here. It does seem like a button, but it's not fully circular. So to be fully honest, I do prefer this version right here. Great. So now we have a button, but we have to actually implement the logout functionality. And how are we going to do that? Well, let's add an onClick property right here. And we're going to call a callback function. And check this out. We imported that Google logout functionality right here from React Auth Google. The only thing we have to do is actually call it. So we're going to say Google logout. And that's it. But now if we try it out, it doesn't do anything. Even if we reload, you can notice that the user is still there. That's because we did log the user out, but we didn't remove it from that local storage. We didn't remove it from ZooStand state. So what we have to do is go back to the auth store, and there we have to add a new function. That function is going to be called remove user. And again, it's going to be a function, and we set the state so that the user profile is set to null. There we go. That is the only thing we have to do. Now we can go back to the navbar. We can import that remove user right here from the use auth store. Remove user. And we can call it right here. Remove user. Perfect. That's it. Now if we click this button, you can notice it goes away. And now we can log in again. So now we have a fully functioning Google Auth login and logout flow. And not the old Google Auth, but the new one that's going to work for years to come. Great. So now we have the complete login and logout functionality. The next step we have to do is add the upload button right here. Okay, so let's try to log in again. There we go. And we have that upload button. Now, if we click it, it's going to point us to the /upload, but that's a 404. We didn't yet create that page. So to create the upload page, we can go under pages and we can create a new page right there, new file, upload.tsx. And then we can run RAFCE inside of there. Now, if we reload, you're going to notice that now we have the upload component. With Next.js, it is so easy as we have that file-based routing. So what we can do next is collapse and close all the files besides the upload.tsx, and this is going to be the next page on our list. To start with our upload component, we can change this to a capital U, upload, as it should be for all components, and we can first import a few things. We can import the use state and use effect hooks. There we go. Then we can import, that's going to be a use router hook coming from next/router. This is going to allow us to reroute back to the home page as soon as we upload a new post. We can also import the FA cloud upload, cloud, there we go, upload alt, and that's coming from react-icons/FA. And we can also get the MD delete coming from react-icons/MD. And finally, we're going to get Axios. So import Axios from Axios. Inside of this file, we'll be using the Auth store. So we can import use Auth store from /store/auth store. And we're going to also get the client. So we can import that sanity client from, that's going to be just /utils/client. And with this, we should have almost everything that we need. We can easily import something else as we go. But now we can start creating the actual JSX of this page. So to start with that, I'm going to pull this to the side so we can see it properly and pull the code a bit to the left. There we go. So we're going to have one div that's going to wrap everything. And that div is going to have a class name equal to flex. It's going to take the full width and the full height. Let's leave it like this for now. We can later on add more class names. We're going to have one more div inside of it. There we go. And this div is going to have a class name equal to bg-white rounded-lg, and that's going to be it for now. Again, we're going to fill it in later as we go. Now we're going to have one more div inside of it that's going to serve as a wrapper div. Inside of that div, we're going to have one more div, and then inside of there, we're going to have two p tags. The first one is going to say upload video, and the second one is going to say post a video to your account. There we go. So now we have those two p tags. We can give the first one a class name equal to text-2xl and font-bold. That's going to be a title. And the second one can have a class name equal to text-md, text-gray-400, and empty-1. There we go. So a title and a subtitle. Now below this div, we can have another div. In here, we're going to have our actual space where we can upload the videos. This div will have quite a few class names, so we can start adding them right away. That's going to be border-dashed, like this. And also rounded-xl, border-4, and border-gray-200. Let's give it a flex and a flex-call property. Justify-center, items-center, outline-none, empty-10. The width is going to be set to 260 pixels, and the height is going to be set to something like 460 pixels. There we go. So now we have that rectangle. Let's give it a padding of 10, and also a cursor-pointer. Now on hover, we can change the color to something like border-red-300. And on hover, we can also change the background. So we can say bg-gray-100. Now, if we hover over it, there we go. Looks great. Now, inside of there, we're going to have the loading property. So right here, we can open a dynamic block of code, and we can say if is loading, then we want to return something, and that something is going to be a p tag, not a div. We just need a simple p tag. There we go. And there we can say uploading. If we're not currently loading, then we can return something else, and that something is going to be a div. There we go. So first of all, let's create that use state field at the top. Use state. And we can say is loading, set is loading, and false at the start. Now, if we're not loading, we're going to have two different states. The first state is going to be the default, when we didn't yet upload the file. And the second one is going to be when we did upload the file. So we're going to have some kind of a state for our video asset. Let's create a new state, and that's going to be use state, and let's call it video asset, and set video asset, which is going to be set to nothing at the start. There, inside of the div, we can say if video asset, like this, then we can render a div with something in it, like this. And then if there isn't a video asset, then we can render some other kind of a div. At the start, we don't have the video asset, so let's do this div first. Instead of a div, we can wrap everything with a label. And that label is going to have a class name equal to cursor, dash pointer, and then inside of there, we can have a div. That div is going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-call, items-center, justify-center, and age-full, as in full height. Now we can duplicate that same exact div one more time below, and of course we need to close it properly. So we're putting it not below, but rather inside of the current div. There we go. So we have a div and then one inside of it. The one inside of it will be the same, but it won't have the age full property. So it's going to look like this. And inside of it, we can add a p tag. That p tag is going to render an icon. So we can say fa cloud upload alt, and that icon is going to have a class name equal to text-gray-300, text-6xl. So we're going to make it really big. There we go, to upload the video. We can also give this p tag a class name equal to font-bold and text-xl. And below that p tag, we can render another p tag that's going to have a select video to upload text. There we go. And we can change that just a bit by giving it a class name equal to text-xl to make it a bit bigger, and also font-semi-bold. There we go. Select a video to upload. This is now going in 2 lines. We want to keep it in 1. So let's just say upload video. That might make more sense. There we go. Perfect. This is looking great. Now, below that p tag and below this div as well, we're going to add an additional p tag. Inside of that p tag, we want to say something like mp4 or webm, which is another format, or OGG. We can add a break tag and say something like 720p times, and then we can do 1280 or higher, create another break tag, and then say up to 10 minutes. And then also another break tag and say less than 2 gigabytes. There we go. Now let's style that a bit. Let's give it a class name equal to text-gray-400 because it's not that important. Text-center, margin top is going to be 10, text-small, and also leading-10. That's going to divide it up a bit. Perfect. This is looking great to me. And we can add just one more p tag below it. This p tag is going to have a class name equal to bg- and then we can specify a custom color, F51997, text center, margin top 10, rounded, text dash white, text dash MD, font dash medium, P dash 2 as in padding, W dash 52 for width, and outline none. There we go. And there we can say select file. That's like a button. Perfect. Now, of course, it would make sense to make this clickable so that we can actually upload the file. We can do that right below this div right here by adding an input tag. This input tag is going to be of a type is equal to file. We're going to give it a name equal to upload-video. We can give it a class name equal to width-0 and height-0 because we created this entire input area. And finally, we can give it a non-change, which is going to be set to event. And then we can call a function to upload the video, to which we can pass that event. There is a shorthand for this. If you simply call a function and pass an event, you can simply do this. You don't have to create a callback function. And then we can create that function just above. It's going to be called upload video. So right here, const upload video is equal to, it's going to be an asynchronous function. So async right here. And we're going to accept an event. And we can say that event is going to be of an any type. There we go. So now we have to work with this event to extract that file. And we can do that by saying const selected file is equal to e.target.files and then 0. That is where the file is stored at. We can also create an array of file types. And we can say video/mp4, video/webm. And also the last one is going to be video/OGG. There we go. So now we first have to check if the video file type matches. So if file types dot includes selected file dot type, that means that the user has uploaded the video in the right format. If that isn't the case, then we can add an else, and we can say set loading to false, or rather set is loading, how we called it, and also set wrong file type to true. There we go. So that's going to be a new state that we can create. So use state wrong file type, and that's going to be set to false at the start. Based on that, we can later on render the error. So now if we tried uploading an image, for example, there we go. I have 4 different videos right here and a GIF. So let's try to upload a GIF, and nothing happens right now, but this right here should have been set to true. So now we can actually look into that and potentially set an error. We're going to do that later on, but for now, let's focus on actually uploading real file types. And we can do that using Sanity. So what we can do is, again, tap into the client functionality and say client.assets.upload. We want to upload a file type, and we need to pass a selected file. Then we also need to pass a third thing, which is an options object. And there we can say content type is equal to selected file dot type. And also file name is equal to selected file dot name. And then if the upload is successful, we can call a .then method on it, give it a callback function that gives us the data back, and then we can set video asset to be equal to data and set is loading to be set to false. Now you can see that TypeScript is complaining, saying type sanity asset documents cannot go inside of this state right here. That's because we need to define the type of this state. And we can do that by importing a type directly from Sanity by saying import Sanity asset document. There we go. Coming from @sanity/client. Now we can strictly set the type for the video asset state. Right here, after the use state, we can open the lower than and greater than sign, and we can say Sanity asset document or undefined, because at the start, it is indeed undefined. And now it's not gonna complain. So now we can actually upload that video asset. So now, what do you say that we code out the JSX part for when there is a video asset so that we can actually test that out? We can have a div and then inside of that div, we're going to render a video tag. That video is going to have a few properties. For example, it's going to have the source, which is the most important one, and that's going to be video asset $.url. And then URL is going to be lowercase. Because not always is there going to be. In this case, we don't even need a question mark because we're checking for the video asset right here, so we know that it exists. We can also give it a loop property. We can also give it the controls, so we can move around, and we can give it a class name equal to rounded-xl h something like 450 pixels. And finally, margin top is 16 and background is black. So what we can do now to test it out is actually upload the video. Let's upload the man laughing on a mountaintop. And there we go. We can see our man right here. It is looking good. It is a bit narrow though. We'll have to play with the styling, but the video is definitely there and we can play it and see that man laughing. Okay, great. Now we have to add the form to add the caption and to choose the category. So that's going to be a bit below. Right below these two parentheses, this div, and then the second pair right here, we can check if the wrong file type is uploaded. So we can say if wrong file type, then we can render a p tag. And for now, it's simply going to say, please select a video file. There we go. We can also give it some class names. For example, text-center, text-xl, text-red-400, font-semi-bold, margin top 4, and width something like 250 pixels. There we go. So now, there we go. Please select a video file. We can still see it because we triggered that event before. If we now reload the page and select the file, you can see we're going to have just the video right here, which is great. So now below that wrong file type, we have one div, and we want to go outside of that div right here to create another div, which is going to be used for our form on the right side of this entire upload interface. Inside of this div, we'll be creating our form. So let's first create a wrapper for the form. Let's give it a class name that's going to be flex, flex-column, and gap-3, as well as padding bottom 10. We need to have a label as well. So right here, we can create a label that's going to say caption. We can see it right here at the bottom. Let's also give that caption a class name of text-md and font-medium. There we go. Now let's expand this a bit. As you can see, the caption doesn't seem to be going on the right side. So we most likely put this div inside of the wrong div. Let's check it out. We have this one wrapping div that wraps the entire form and everything else. And it looks like we have to put it one div below. It doesn't seem that it is positioned correctly, as it should be right here on the right side. But what we can do is put this back right here. And then we can check the styling on our top two outer divs. We are yet to style those. So our first one is going to have a flex, W-full, H-full. Position is going to be set to absolute. Let's see the changes that is making. We can also set left to 0. Top is going to be set to something like 60 pixels. Margin bottom is going to be set to 10. Padding top is going to be set to 10 as well. On large devices, padding top is going to be set to 20. Background is going to be set to, let's do a grayish color, like F8, F8, F8. And justify dash center. Okay, so now we created that structure in which we can upload the actual documents. You can see it. But it seems to be a bit too narrow, right? So let's also style the inner div. We can give it a BG wide rounded dash LG. On extra large devices, let's set the height to be something like 80 VH. That's going to be VH like this. We can give it a flex property, gap dash 6, flex dash wrap, justify dash center, items dash center, padding 14, and then also padding top 6. So now we have something that looks like this. And if you expand it, it's still not looking that good, right? In here, instead of PT6, it's going to be just P, so padding. And if we compare the two, it is not that far off, actually. We're just missing this right side. So we can start implementing the caption part right now, and then we're going to get some width to this div. So scrolling all the way down, there we go. We have our caption. And now we can start with our input. So right below our label, we can add our input. That input is going to have a type is equal to text. Value is going to be set to an empty string for now. And onChange is going to be set to just an empty callback function for now. We're going to implement the logic later on. Let's save it. There we go. It is here. Let's give it some class name so we can better see it. Class name is going to be rounded. Outline is going to be set to none. Text is going to be MD. And let's give it a border 2, border dash gray dash 200, and padding 2. There we go. Here we have our caption field. Now we can add another label right here. This label is going to say choose a category. We can also give it the same class name as we did to the above one. There we go, choose a category. And now, instead of an input, we can add the select tag. So let's choose a select. That select is going to have an onChange property as well, which for now, we're going to set to be an empty callback function. And then inside of the select, we have to loop over all of the available categories. We first need to import them. So at the top, we can import. That's going to be topics. And that's coming from /utils/constants. There we go. If we go into that, you can see that we have coding, comedy, gaming, food, and so on. So if we scroll down now, right here, we can loop over those topics by saying topics.map. We get the topic as the first parameter, a pair of parentheses, and we render different options. Of course, we have to close this with a curly brace. And then each option is going to simply render the topic.name. There we go. So we have coding, comedy, gaming, food, dance, and so on. We can, of course, style it a bit and give it a key because we're looping over something. So we need to give it a key so that the React can differentiate it. Topic.name. Let's also give it a class name equal to outline-none. Capitalize, BG-white, text-gray-700, text-MD, P-2, on hover, BG-slate-300. So now, this should look a bit better, but it still doesn't. So it looks like the classes weren't applied. Let's also apply the classes to the actual select element. So right here, we can add a class name equal to outline-none, border-2, border-gray-200, text-MD, capitalize, On large devices, padding 4, usually padding 2. Let's set that to rounded and cursor dash pointer. Okay, so now this is looking a bit better. We have a caption and we have choose a category. That's great. Of course, we have to assign a value to each option, and value is going to be topic.name. Perfect. And finally, below this select right here, we have to add a div that's going to serve as a buttons container. We have to have two different buttons: discard the video and upload the video. So that div is going to have a class name equal to flex, gap -6, margin top is 10. Inside of there, we can render a button. That button is going to have an onClick property. And for now, let's leave it as an empty callback function. The reason why I'm doing that is because we're going to come in later on, and once we have the structure built out, we'll easily implement the functionality. The type of the button is going to, of course, be button, and we can give it a class name. But before we do, let's simply say something inside of there, and we can say discard. There we go. Now to style this button, let's give it a border -gray -300. Let's also set the border -2. Let's give it a text -MD, font -medium, padding -2, rounded, W-28 for width, on large devices, width -44, and outline none. There we go. So now we have our discard button, and we can essentially copy this button, paste it below. This one is going to be our post button. So right here, we can say post, and we can change the styles a bit. Of course, we're going to change the border. In this case, we won't even need it. We can say BG dash, color is going to be #F51997, and text dash white. Everything else can remain the same. So now we have a post and a discard button. There we go. So this is already looking better. If I expand this, it's looking great as well. And I would also just expand this a bit on wider devices. You can see there's a lot of empty space right here, and this part seems a bit too close together. So that's going to be our outer div. Let's scroll all the way up. And I think that's going to be this div. So right here, let's do something like width dash, and then inside of square brackets, let's do 80%. But we're not going to do justify center, we're going to do justify between. There we go. This is looking a bit better, but now we can bring it back to something like 60%. And this is looking just a bit better. Perfect. So now if we go back, we can see all of our videos, which is just one right now. And if we go to upload, then we can upload our own videos. This is looking great. Now, of course, we have to work on the functionality of adding the caption, choosing the category, and then taking all of that together with a video and actually uploading it to Sanity so that we can see it on our homepage. To start implementing the upload functionality, we'll of course need a few more states. We have the is loading, we have the video asset and the wrong file type, but we need just a few more. We need the state for the caption. So let's say caption, set caption, and at the start, that's going to be set to an empty string. We can also create a new state for the category. So that's going to be category, set category, and at the start, let's set it to topics 0 and then .name. So the first one from the topics is automatically going to be selected. We can also create a state. So use state. That's going to be a state for saving post. So are we currently saving the post? And it's going to be set to false at the start. And that's going to be all that we need for now. So now we can make use of these states below. Let's scroll down to our form. There we go. Inside of our caption, the value is going to be set to caption. And the onChange is going to be set to set caption. And we can pass in the event, which is coming from here. So e.target.value. That is where the value of a key press is stored at. And now we can repeat the process for the select right here. On the onChange, we're going to get an event. And what we want to do is we want to set the category to be equal to e.target.value. Okay, so we have completed the caption. Now we can type something in, and we have created the category. So now we can choose coding. We can also upload the video of a man laughing on a mountaintop. And now, how do we merge all of that together? We have to post it, of course. So where is our post? There we go. On click, we want to handle post. So right here, handle post, and it doesn't have to be inside of a callback function. But of course, it's not going to be inside of a discard button. Rather, it's going to be inside of the post button. And this is a function that we are yet to create. So right here, below the upload video, we can create a new function. And that function is going to be called const handle post. It's going to be another asynchronous function. And there, we first have to check if caption exists and if video asset !_ID exists, and if topic, or rather category in our case, exists, then we can start saving the post. So we can say set saving post is true. And now we have to form a new document that we're going to pass to Sanity so that it gets stored in the database. So we can say const document is equal to an object. Remember, we have to pass the underscore type, which in this case is post. We can pass in the caption. We need to pass in the video. And the video itself is a type of a file. So video is a file, and it has an asset inside of it. So the asset is going to be of a type reference, and it's going to reference to the video asset .id. So right here, !_ID. We already uploaded it. Remember, right here, client.assets.upload. And now we want to refer to that video asset and merge it or connect it with this post. We don't want to simply connect it with the video and the post. We want to connect it to the user as well, because user is posting that. So we can say user ID is equal to user profile !_ID. But user profile now is not defined. So do you remember, how can we get a user from ZooStand? Well, it is as simple as right here saying const and destructure something, and that something is user profile is equal to use auth store. And that's it. We imported that before right here. So now we have access to the user profile as well. And we also need to have the posted by. So we need to know who posted it. And that's going to be of a type is equal to posted by. And we can also pass a reference to the user. So user profile dot !_ID. And we have to add a comma there. So this is good. It looks like our TypeScript is complaining a bit, saying cannot find property _ID on the type never, because it doesn't really know what the user profile is. So what we have to do is right here, we can say user profile. That's going to be an object where the user profile is of a type any. So we can say it's of an any type. Don't bother us here, and we just want to go with it. There are some good sides of TypeScript and bad sides of TypeScript. If you want to use TypeScript to its fullest potential, then it's really strict. You have to specify every single little thing, but then it protects you from your own mistakes. But sometimes that also takes a bit of time, so you simply want to say, hey, let me do my own thing. And then you set it to any, and you're good to go. Again, this is not really how you should be using TypeScript. You should always specify the types as much as you can. With that said, we also want to pass a category or a topic. So we can say topic is equal to a category. There we go. And that's it. We just formed this document. Now the question is, what do we do with it? Well, we're going to send it over to our new backend route that we are going to create. So we can say await axios.post, we're going to call that same HTTP colon / localhost 3000 and then / API / post. And we're going to pass in the document as the second parameter. And as soon as we do that, we also want to use the next router. So we can initialize the router at the top by saying const router is equal to use router. And now just below, as soon as we upload it, we can say router dot push, and we can push it to the home page. So that way we'll be able to immediately see the new post we created. But now, of course, we have to create this backend route, which is API post. And if you think about it, we already have it, post index.ts. But we created it for a get route. But now we have to do else if rec that method is triple equal to post, because these are different. With post, you can actually pass some data there. So what do we want to do if we get to the post route? Well, we get the document, const document is equal to rec.body, the one we just passed. And then we want to call the client dot create. We pass in that same document, and then we can call a dot then like this, where we say res.status is 200, everything went well, and .json, and then we can say video created. There we go. Or rather, a more proper status in this case would be 201, which stands for created. There we go. So now we are finally adding documents to Sanity. What we can do right now is test it all out, of course. So let's upload a video. Let's do coding technology. Let's say I love coding. Let's choose a category of coding and let's click post. We added a lot of code, so I'm not expecting it's gonna work immediately, but who knows? Let's check it out. I'm gonna click post and it reloaded and it added the video right here. So this is great. Although it's not taking the entire space, which means that we have to change the styles a bit, but the video is here and we can actually play it and mute it, which means that it should also be on the localhost 3333 under posts. There we go. The video just got uploaded. And this was a huge part that we just added, which means that we can now post videos and watch them. That is great. That was a big piece of functionality, so I'm really glad we got this figured out. We now have that upload page, which works successfully. We just tested it out. We can upload videos and check them out on the homepage. Great. Next, we're going to focus on fixing this little styling mistake right here so that this video takes the entire portion of the screen. To fix that, we can go inside of our video card, of course, because that is where the code is. So video card. Let's find that video or the div wrapping the video. There we go. And it looks like we just have this video right here and it's taking 600 pixels of width. Oh, but we are missing a dash right here. So if we add this, oh, there we go. It was just one single character. This is making it look so much better. I think we can even go a bit larger, like 700 should also be good. There we go. Yeah, this is looking great, but then these icons are not looking good. So let's bring that back to around 600. Perfect. This is phenomenal. Okay, with that said, this is already looking like a great application. The next thing we can do is remove this login from Sidebar because we no longer need it. We have this great login at the top right, and it's not going to be necessary to have the login on the sidebar as well. I initially wanted to have it there, but when Google added that new login, I figured out it's no longer necessary. So let's go to our sidebar. And right here, we can remove this entire thing, this entire Google login and the user profile part. There we go. Let's now save this. And this is looking great. We still haven't added the suggested accounts, so that's something that we have to do. And we also have the search left to do. But more important than the search and than the suggested accounts is the actual video details page. So once you click on this video, you should be navigated to the video details page where you can like it and where you can leave comments. So to implement that, we can create a new page right here. That's going to be a new folder, which is going to be called detail. And then inside of that folder, we can create a new file, but this time it's going to start with a square bracket and end with a square bracket. And we're going to put the ID inside of there, .tsx. In Next.js file-based routing, this means that the URL is going to be dynamic. So it's going to change based on where we go. So we can go to something like /detail/ and then this random sequence of numbers right here. And that's going to open up this detail page right here. Let's create a basic file structure there, RAFCE. We'll have to modify this a bit. So we can say detail. There we go. And detail right here. Great. Now, when we click on this video, we need to re-navigate. So let's go to our video card and let's find those links. There we go. Once we click right here, we want to re-navigate to, let's make it into a template string. That's going to be /detail and then / and then _ID, or that's going to be post._ID. There we go. Now, if we click on the video, it redirects us to the detail page and we have an empty detail component to work with. And that's going to be it for the part 1 of building the video sharing social media platform. In this video, we've created the general layout of the application with the navbar and the sidebar as well as the videos section. We set up everything properly so that we can log in using Google, and we also set up Sanity so we can fetch videos. In part 2, which we're going to do really soon, we'll play with the layout a bit to make it look better. As you can see right here, we're going to center everything, make the videos look nicer, and we're going to implement the suggested accounts as well as the search functionality. Of course, we are yet to do the video component as well, likes and comments functionality, and finally the profile page. So all of these parts are still remaining, and we're going to do that in the next video. While you're waiting, feel free to check out the jsmastery.pro website. Here you can find the best project-based tutorials and courses. Right now, you can choose to build Filmpire, an AI-powered movie application, and an NFT marketplace, which dives into the world of Web3. So once again, while you're waiting for the part 2, feel free to check out the platform. That's going to be it for this one. If you want to support the part 2, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.